Hey, welcome into the Thursday edition of Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Ryan Porth here with you on this Thursday morning in Nashville, Tennessee. We got a lot to get to today here on the show. The Predators fall behind 2-0 in the series against the Carolina Hurricanes. A 3-0 loss last night on the road for the Predators in Carolina. Now coming back home in a pretty big hole in Game 3 as that comes around on Friday. We got a lot to get to today here on the show. We'll take your thoughts all show long on our text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. Joe Rexrode, how we doing? What's going on?
Oh, we're doing just fine.
Are we?
How are we doing? How are you doing?
Oh, I'm good. It was an interesting postgame last night. We'll get to a lot of that coming up a little bit later in the show, but that was something last night.
Yeah, well, and the funny thing is, as you guys know, like right before that, we were texting, and I was actually saying, like, yeah, I thought they played like way better,
Yes.
Again, 5-on-5. That's the key. That's the key. You got to separate the Preds performances in two. There's a 5-on-5 performance, and then there's the other performance that was just unbelievably bad. But yeah, that was quite a post game. And then I'm watching like the Bally Sports post game show, and Crispy's like, yeah, I had to answer these stupid, ridiculous questions as a coach. I'm like, what are you talking about, Crispy? What are you talking about? Crispy's ripping me on TV. Katie's sitting there like ripping me, whatever, man.
It's banner night last night for Joe Rexrode. We'll get to more of that coming up a little bit later here in the show. Like a classic case of a misunderstanding last night. We'll get to that coming up a little bit more down the stretch here. Look, we've got a lot to get to today, and we're going to spend a lot of time today talking about the power play and how abysmal that was last night. 0 for 7 on the power play. I mean, it's just unacceptable, and I've got a lot to say about that as we move forward today. Joe, let's just get your first thoughts, and leaving the power play kind of out of it for now for the sake of this discussion. What'd you think of the game last night? What'd you think of the Predators and the way they played last night? And ultimately, you're right there, despite everything that happened. You're right there in the third period. You're down 1. You've got some chances to tie that thing up. They're not able to do it. And then you get the empty netter from Aho, and they add another one before the game's over to win 3-0. So I think the score a little bit deceptive as to what happened last night in this game. What did you think overall from the Predators' performance?
Well, we're taking the power play out of it?
Yeah, for the sake of now, yes.
Well, if we're taking the power play out of it, then yeah, I mean, I think it was better. Does better matter in the playoffs, really? Ultimately you win or you lose. And right now, I mean, I still think this series is not long for this postseason, but it was better. I mean, I thought they played like a desperate team, and I thought that they, in 5-on-5, again, I think some of these 7 power plays that they flubbed were because they were doing good things in 5-on-5 and they were forcing penalties. And I thought Saros was fantastic. I mean, Saros, but again, we're separating them. If you unseparate them for a minute, like when your goaltender has to make saves like that repeatedly on your power play. Yeah. Again, kudos to him, because to me, we talked the other day. What did we talk about? We talked about the question of like Saros stealing games. How many would he have to steal? That to me was one of those performances. That was one of those, and that was exactly what I was trying to ask and didn't do the clearest job of executing. That looked like a goalie stealing a game in the playoffs with some of the saves he had, especially the save on the 2-on-1 in the first period. But if you don't score, it doesn't matter.
Exactly. And I thought 5-on-5, I agree with you. It was better than game 1. I don't buy into this crap that was thrown out there last night by the Predators, that this was just demonstrably better. Like I didn't come away from that game last night thinking the Predators played really, really well and they just didn't find a way to win. Like that's not what I came away with last night. They did a much better job at limiting them offensively in the defensive zone. They did better, other than when they were on the power play, obviously, and Saros had to make some big saves. But I didn't really think they approached scoring a goal all that much last night. I mean, I'm looking at natural stat trick right now. It's given them 8 high danger chances for the game, which is, it's not a high number. It's not the worst that I've seen either. It's given them 8 high danger chances for the game last night, 5 on 5. Yeah. I'd have to see them because I can count on one hand the high danger chances that I remember from the entire game last night. So, look, it was better than game one. I thought in game one they played basically 20 minutes where they felt pretty good about their game, and then the final 40, Carolina basically took it to them. So it wasn't that last night in game two, so I guess you feel better about that. But I did not come away from the game last night, even at 5 on 5, thinking that the Predators were just demonstrably the better team. I thought they got knocked off the puck a lot. I didn't think they really approached scoring many goals last night. I was not impressed by what I saw in the offensive zone. And I said it yesterday here on the show. Yes, it's important to defend against Carolina, and it's important not to beat yourself with turnovers and not let their forecheck take over and all these things. But at some point, you've got to be dangerous offensively. And outside of maybe 2 or 3 chances last night, I did not feel like the Predators were dangerous offensively at all.
All right, so just so you're saying you don't think they were demonstrably better than game one or better than the Hurricanes?
I don't think they were demonstrably better than game one in the offensive zone. I really don't.
Yeah, I thought there was – I mean, the second and third periods of game one, I think the only time it looked like that to me, and again, this is one of those – I mean, natural stat trick confirms what I thought. I mean, I hear what you're saying. I don't know that there were 8 absolute primo chances, but it was an 8-5 advantage, by that particular service compared to an 11-5 for Carolina in the first game. So the second and third periods of game one, I thought that was the first few minutes of this game leading into that power play goal, and I didn't think it was like that the rest of the time. Now, you also have the third period where at some point, even Carolina's going to downshift a little bit, right? It's a 1-0 game. Everybody realizes, okay, it's a 1-0 game. Don't let them score, win the game.
Yeah,
that's probably some of it in the third period too. But I was really impressed with a lot of the second period from the Preds. Other than all these power plays that kept getting in the way.
Yeah.
But again, they did create some of these power plays with how they were playing on 5 on 5. So I thought it was a total mismatch for most of the last 40 minutes of game one, and it looked like a more evenly matched matchup in this one. So again, how much does that matter? I mean, we can go back and forth on that all day. I mean, ultimately, if your power play is that bad, and if you don't score, then great. Then here's your participation trophy.
Well, and they made some lineup changes last night as well. Calle Jarnkrok out of the lineup last night due to a non-COVID illness, so he's not in there. Eeli Tolvanen comes in and fills his spot on the Granlund line. And that's something you pointed out yesterday, Joe. The Granlund line was going to have to be better. I know Cunnin got one chance coming in off the bench, and Nedeljkovic made a good save on that play. I was not impressed by that Granlund line last night. And quite frankly, I thought Eeli Tolvanen was horrible last night. I mean, he was getting knocked off the puck left and right. He had, I think, 2 looks on the power play, got one of them on net. I was not impressed whatsoever by Eeli Tolvanen last night.
Yeah, it wasn't great. It was kind of an illustration of, the dilemma there, because they certainly have other options that are better options 5 on 5. Now, granted, he could score a 5 on 5 goal in one of these upcoming games because he's a sniper, and and he happens to get enough space, and he rips one that a shot that nobody else on his team can execute. But he wasn't. You could see why it's a dilemma, and then the power play. It's just there were a couple times, those rare occasions where they got set up. I thought he looked okay over there. He did some good things. He has a good feel for it. But is that enough? It's going to be really interesting with him, in game 3.
Yeah.
The decision on that, because I guess at some point, it just looks like flip-flopping. If you keep changing around and stuff like that, And again, I mean, I think the case for him is the same. It's okay. The power play has to do something. It has to be some kind of threat. But I think you're right, and I think that a Richardson, a Cousins, a Grimaldi, guys like that in 5-on-5 could be a lot more effective than him.
At Schmoes_goes on Periscope says it's been the same guys on the power play for 4 years. At some point, it's the players, not the coaches. They're just not good enough, period. They bottom-fed on bad teams the second half of the year. We've seen a lot of that the last couple of days. I don't completely buy that that's the case, but here you are. I mean, you're in an 0-2 hole now if you're the Predators. And look, I'm not going to say it's over because it's a 7-game series. You're down 0-2. We've seen this franchise be down 0-2 before and tie it up at 2 several times. But realistically, viewing this right now, it's not over. It's pretty close. I mean, you've got to win 4 out of 5 against a team that you've won twice against all year long in the regular season. I mean, let's take that last game out of it. So you've had 9 meaningful games that have actually meant something this year, and you've beaten this team once. So beating this team 4 out of 5 times coming down the stretch here, that's a lot to ask for this Predators team. I know you're coming back home. I still expect the environment on Friday night at Bridgestone Arena to be awesome, and that absolutely is going to help the Predators. I expect them to come out with a ton of energy to start that game in Game 3. But we talked about it yesterday. You needed to have this game. I thought your goaltender played well enough to give you a chance. Quite honestly, I thought defensively you were fine for the most part. I didn't feel like you were giving up a ton of chances to Carolina last night. You just could not get anything going offensively, and here you sit in an 0-2 hole. This is going to be a tall, tall order to win 4 out of the next 5 games.
No doubt. But I mean, I think it's obvious for them. It's just you hope that scene Friday night is a huge boost. You got to win one game because, look, 2-0 has been overcome many, many times. 3-0 is get the golf clubs polished off. I mean, you have to win this next game. And I do think that there are some things to build on from Game 2 that you can take into Game 3. And if you get one, okay, well, now you just have to win 3 or 4.
Yes.
against this ridiculously good team. It reads to me like a 5-game series. Like the Preds will get one here, and they'll go down in Carolina. But you know what? This 0-2 hole, we could take it and we could compare it to the regular season, and say that's about what they were in the regular season, and they fought their way back. It's just this opponent is very, very good, and they're a better team, and their big time players are stepping up in this occasion, which is different from the Preds' big-time players.
And that's exactly right. The Predators' big-time players not stepping up. And you say things to build on. I think that's true, 5-on-5 to some degree. I tell you what they're not going to build on heading into this game on Friday, and that's the power play. That was awful last night. We'll get to that coming up next. Get your thoughts as well on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. You're listening to Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 1025 The Game.
And the Hurricanes take a 2-0 lead over the Nashville Predators with tonight's 3-0 victory over Nashville.
Ryan, your goaltender, able to keep you in it tonight. Unfortunately, doesn't go your way. How do you assess this one for your group here?
I think there's more positives from tonight than the first game. So we did some good things out there and playing against a great hockey team, and just got to find a way to do a little bit more.
That was Ryan Johansen after the game last night. A 3-0 loss for the Predators in Game 2 of their series against the Hurricanes. They're down 0-2 heading back here to Nashville for Game 3 coming up on Friday. And, Joe, without question, the story from the game last night is the power play. 0 for 7 on the power play for the Predators last night against the Hurricanes. And it was another situation where at one point, like, I couldn't really believe how many penalties they were calling in this series, and it wasn't just the Predators. I mean, Carolina got a lot of power play looks in this game as well, and I thought again, I mean, other than the Aho goal that puts you up 1-0, which is a great play by Svechnikov across the box over to Aho, I thought the Predators' penalty kill did a good job once again in this game. But the problem is, I mean, that power play, and I tweeted this out last night, and I stand by it. Like, I've seen a lot of hockey in my life. I've watched thousands of hockey games in my life. I don't know that I have seen a power play look worse than the Predators' power play has through the first 6 periods of this series. I really don't. And I know people, and you brought this up last night too, they're going to point back to that Star series in 2019, and it was bad, and I think they went 0 for 15 in that series on the power play. We're 2 games into this right now. They are 0 for 10, and you know, with the rare exception last night, they got set up a few times. They still couldn't even find a way to get set up last night, and you're giving up shorthanded chances left and right against the Hurricanes. I mean, the power play was absolutely abysmal last night. I don't really know of another word to describe what we saw on that power play last night.
Yeah, it's an interesting question if we want to make that comparison. There's another good text exchange we were having last night. You know, I'm like, well, actually it was on Twitter. I was like, you know, I still think back to 2019, and it was so hopeless and stagnant, and it was just like, move the puck around, you know, Subban from the point, no one gets a rebound.
Yeah.
Nothing. Like, it was, I made the analogy, like, this last night was kind of like maybe what you hope, like Tennessee, well, you don't hope, but like what Tennessee might be changing to in football, which is like going from terribly boring to at least like it's so bad the other way, you know, like you lose in a shootout. Again, it's kind of, you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Like you know, this power play provided the other team with all these opportunities. Now, again, that's Carolina's way, but I don't think there's any excuse at all for being a professional hockey team having an extra skater and having that much trouble entering a zone.
Look,
there's got to be a way. There's got to be another way.
I'm all for giving Carolina credit because, look, we knew this coming into the series. Their penalty kill is great. So they deserve full credit, and I'm not trying to take anything away from them. But at some point, it's math. Like, you have 5 players. They have 4. You should be able to get set up at some point. And, Joe, I think part of the reason that I'm probably a little bit more down on this game last night, even 5-on-5 than some other people are, they didn't have their best defenseman in the game last night. Jacob Slavin didn't play. And you still couldn't generate anything on the power play. You couldn't generate much of anything 5-on-5. And their best defenseman wasn't even in the game. To me, that is not a good sign moving forward here. I mean, look, they've still got plenty of guys, and we talked about this heading into the matchup. Carolina is as deep on defense as I think any team in the league is. But Jacob Slavin is a stud. He is a huge loss for them last night. And when it came out in the warm-up that he wasn't going to be in there and he wasn't going to play last night, I thought to myself, wow, the Predators, that's a big opportunity here on the road. One of their best players, not just best defenseman, one of their best players not available for this team. You got to find a way to take advantage of that. And you know, to a certain degree 5-on-5, but certainly on the power play, they did not take advantage of that at all. And then you factor in not only, I mean, it's one thing not to be able to get set up and to not generate anything on the power play, But the best chances of the game for the Hurricanes offensively came while they were shorthanded. And I'm not just talking about once. I mean, it was 3 or 4 high-quality saves that UC Saros had to make while you're on the power play. That should not happen.
They averaged probably, one great chance every single Preds power play? It at least felt like it.
Yeah, it felt like it.
Yeah, at least good. Yeah, a few of them great, but certainly, yeah.
And,
I mean, they
And how many times did we hear Chris Mason on the broadcast say, well, Carolina's got their best forwards out there. And, that's not to knock what he's saying about that, because it's true. I mean, Aho is the one who's getting all these shorthanded chances. But, Carolina's they're not the only team that puts out their best forwards out there on the penalty kill. It's not like they're, breaking ground with that strategy. So, it was the last 60 seconds of the first period were
it's brutal.
They could not enter the zone.
Yeah.
They get that what was it, the 4th power play chance of the first period?
Yeah.
And they literally could not get past the blue line. It was like LSU trying to cross the 50-yard line in the national championship 10 years ago.
Yeah.
They could not cross the blue line. It was unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, look, Carolina is very good. They do what they do. They're top 5 in both. We know all this. But, I mean, even when these teams played in the regular season, I don't remember it being this bad in that aspect of the game.
No.
I mean, it was so. It's an interesting. It's amazing that we've come around to is this worse than the 2019 power play? Because to me, there was no way to possibly be worse. But also, this power play has been one of the positive developments of this turnaround. At least the first half of the turnaround.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, that was a big part of it. Was all of a sudden they've got this Tolvanen in the left circle, and they've got Forsberg, and they actually are making teams pay. And this is where look, there's been a lot of reaction on Hines on the post game stuff, and we're back to some people just going way overboard on him, in my opinion. But I will say that, I mean, that's one area where in between games and preparing for games that usually coaches really harp on. What is the plan in the power play? What's the plan in the penalty kill? So this is a back to the drawing board thing for Hines to me. I understand it's still the players out there on the ice who have to execute, and in the moment, you got to handle that pressure. But to me, doesn't there have to be some other plan, some way to make them pay? If they have one guy waiting for you to rim it around the boards over here, so it's basically a 4-on-3.
Yeah,
you have to figure out a way to take advantage of that, right?
You do, and look, some of this is on the players too. Just get into the zone. It's pretty obvious what they're doing. Carolina is paying a ton of attention to Rowan Josi, a ton, and that's fine. I mean, teams try to do that all the time. Josi still found a way at times last night to kind of break through it. But, I mean, Ryan Johansen or Philip Forsberg, somebody has got to find a way to bully their way into the zone. Carolina, they're standing on the blue line, and to Port's point, I mean, and I think this was probably the most extreme example last night, but at the end of that first period, they had 3 different rushes to try to get in the zone, and they didn't even approach it. I mean, they could not even act like they were going to get in the zone. I'm not even talking about getting set up. They could not get in the zone. That is a big problem.
It felt like when Carolina was on the penalty kill that they had 6 or 7 forwards out there.
Yeah.
It felt like it was 6-on-4 or 7-on-4 in favor of Carolina and not 5-on-4.
Yeah, I mean,
in favor of Nashville.
Well, it's funny you say that. Yeah, it's funny you say that because as I'm sitting there thinking about the coaching aspect of this, how do you draw something up to somehow counter this? I think sometimes you'll see basketball teams, if they're about to play a pressing team, they'll have the scout team go with 7 people, right?
Yeah.
To give them that look. I mean, maybe the Preds need to go with 6 or 7 when they're practicing against a penalty kill, man. I don't know.
10 on 5. See if you can find a way to break through that. Maybe a strategy coming up in Morning Skate before Game 3. We'll continue this discussion. We got a lot of your texts to get to on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. All that next. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 1025, The Game.
Hey, Roman. Carolina did what it was supposed to do, win at home. If you guys do the same thing, is the whole thing just making this a 3-game series?
Yeah. I think just looking at the games, I didn't like our game in the first game. We didn't play up to our standard, but like I said, I thought tonight we played a lot better. We played, our special teams weren't good, but I thought we played hard, 5-on-5. We played a good game, so I think we got to build off that. And obviously, going home, playing in front of our fans is always exciting in the playoffs. So we're excited for that.
As Predators captain Roman Josi after the game last night, discussing the mindset for the Predators now coming back home down 0-2 against Carolina in this series. 7-game series for the Predators against the Hurricanes. Game 3 coming up on Friday at Bridgestone Arena. Should be a great environment at Bridgestone Arena coming up on Friday for Game 3. We got a lot of text to get to on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. Andrew from Dover texting in. Saros did everything he could. I agree with the announcer last night saying he didn't deserve to have 3 goals against him. Our power play just sucked, 0 for 7. Come on, Preds, it's got to be better than that. And, Joe, to your point, and this is what I think you were trying to get to with John Hines last night, Saros, was pretty awesome last night. I thought he made some incredible saves. I mean, the 2-on-1, I think it was Brett Pesce and Vincent Trocheck out of that 2-on-1, and Trocheck just lets it go, and Saros just makes an incredible save in the first period. He made a couple of more on Aho as well, shorthanded. I mean, I thought Saros was awesome last night, and unfortunately for the Predators, the best part about their power play last night was how good their goaltender was in net.
Right. I mean, and I wrote about that. And that's why I was actually asking you guys last night, like, who was that with Trocheck? Because I kept watching the replay over and over because I thought that play was incredible. And it was Tolvanen and Bots that, like Tolvanen, you can't let the pass go back. Like the way, basically you isolate it. So, okay, 2-on-1, isolate it. Here's the shooter. Here's your goalie. There you go. Take the other guy out of it. Well, he let it go back to Trocheck, so now Saros is moving. He's in position going left, and all of a sudden he's got to come back over. And seriously, it looked like I watched the play like 30 times because I knew I wanted to write about it. I mean, seriously, like he started, it's like his body was being like split in half. He has to somehow get the right side over here while he has just been moving his momentum over here, and to kick out and get that save, then stop the rebound. Again, that was to me like what that play immediately in my mind. I was like, see that right there? I knew I was going to write about it either way, and I thought, if they win, it's a perfect thing to write about too, because that's the Saros stole the game moment, right? It didn't work out that way, but yeah, he was fantastic, and it's not like, again, this is where we can debate the 5-on-5 stuff. He wasn't under the kind of siege that he was, I think, consistently in Game 1. But, gosh, every time his team went on the power play, head on a swivel, UC, because it's coming at you, buddy.
That was definitely the most looks he got all night long when the Predators were on the power play, and it was brutal to watch on the power play last night. Let's go back to the text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Got a texter that says, "Why are we not playing Grimaldi because of his speed?" And, Joe, look, I'll say this. Yesterday we talked about, Grimaldi, and if Arvidsson's going to play, I just don't really see a spot for Grimaldi in there. Arvidsson has been bad these first 2 games. I have not been impressed by what I've seen out of Victor Arvidsson. I mean, he made a play at the blue line last night where he just decided instead of, dumping the puck down or passing it off to somebody, I mean, he's just going to sit there and fire it into the shin pad of the Carolina Hurricane defender in front of him. He has to haul somebody down on the way back to take a penalty to stop him from going on a 2-on-1 rush. I don't know if he's still hurt or what it is, or if Arvidsson at this point is just diminishing before our eyes. But he has looked pretty rough the first 2 games back. I've not been impressed by what I've seen from Victor Arvidsson.
Yeah, no, and that's – I wonder if Hines looks at that as an either-or, because, I mean, I think – your point on that whole thing is like you can't be too small in this lineup, against this team, especially the way you want to play, the way you feel like you've got to play against this team to try to neutralize them some. So is that an either or? Because look, people calling for Grimaldi, I get it. The guy makes things happen. You give up some things too if you bring him in. I mean, I think you could still make a case for like a Nick Cousins, to potentially help this team. There are options. Obviously, Olivier was back out last night, and I think that makes sense. To not, I guess, overdo it with, with the heaviness. But yeah, Arvidsson is one of those guys. I mean, you talk about their key players. Who do we think like really stepped up? I will say one guy who I thought was just amazing is Yossi. I mean, the dude played 27 minutes.
It was a much better response from him.
He had 8 shots on goal. He's all over the place. He's got 4 hits. Again, you don't finish, but I thought a lot of what they created came down to him, and I thought it was way different than game 1. If there was one player who took that and responded from 1 to 2, I thought it was the captain.
Let's go back to
Not enough other guys did.
Oh, I don't think there's any question about that. Let's go to our 102.5 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, and welcome in Greg from Springfield, who wants to weigh in. Greg, thanks for calling in to Robby and Rexrode.
Hey, good morning, fellas.
Good morning.
Hey, listen, I noticed this about Arvidsson. He plays great in the regular season. Grimaldi does. Ryan Ellis does. But in the playoffs, this game is a big man's game. And I don't know if anybody's been paying attention the last 3 or 4 years. Arvidsson is laying on the ice making snow angels a lot of the playoffs. He is getting knocked around. Even Ellis gets knocked around. I don't understand why the coaching staff and the GM are not seeing this. Arvidsson, Grimaldi, they should not be in the lineup. That's my opinion.
Thanks for the call, Greg. We appreciate it. I mean, look, it's hard to argue at this point based on what we've seen that Arvidsson is just not the same guy in the playoffs. And, look, I thought he played pretty well last year against Arizona in that series. But, I mean, he was, to Greg's point there, I thought he got pushed around last night. And that's going to happen. I mean, that happens at times with him in the regular season too. But I think it gets taken to a pretty extreme level in the playoffs to the point where there have been series that have come and gone, and he's just not effective. He can't be effective, and that's a problem. And the other thing that's really stood out to me, and Adam Vingan from The Athletic has done a piece on this as well, kind of highlighting Arvidsson and his attempts on the rush and the chances that he's had coming on the rush with the puck on his stick. And those have gone way down the last couple of years. And to me, that is a direct reflection on speed. He is not getting the same opportunities that he's gotten the last couple of years in terms of what we've grown accustomed to seeing from Victor Arvidsson. And I don't know if that's the buildup of injuries that he's had, or if he's still going through something right now that's been nagging at him for the last little while. But he just doesn't feel like he's got that speed that really separates him. And when you don't have that speed and you don't have the size, that's not a very good combination for Victor Arvidsson. And Joe's talking on mute. There we go.
The mute button.
We got him. All right, there we go.
Got him.
I've been way better, by the way. Way better.
You have.
I was making an amazing point. I was making probably the best point I've ever made, and now I've lost it. Look, Arvidsson is diminished. I don't think there's any doubt about that. And I hear what Greg's saying for sure. Size becomes a little bit more important. But let's also remember, 2 years ago, one forward played well against Dallas, against big, burly, tough Dallas. It was Rocco Grimaldi. I mean, he was, and his speed was an asset.
Yep.
I mean, I think speed still matters too. Ideally, you got big and fast guys. That's what everybody wants. You want big, physical, fast guys, a bunch of 6 foot, 195-pound burners, But I don't think that there's no place for small players in the playoffs. And again, Ryan Ellis too. Not a good game 1. I thought a better game 2, and certainly a guy who has been. I mean, he's had a lot of really good playoff games for the Preds. So it's not a non-starter to be a little bit smaller in stature. It does get exposed more. And the problem with Arvidsson is if you don't have that burst then I don't know how much you're really bringing to the game.
Well, I think another player that I'll add into this conversation, last night, I was not impressed with Mikhail Granlund.
No.
Was not impressed with him in game one. But in terms of, Greg, who just called in, talking about how Arvidsson's always on the ice, I thought Granlund got tossed around way too much last night, and his butt was on the ice way too much. And that is an issue.
Well,
because I made this point yesterday. He's been great in the last couple of months, and you cannot afford for him to just be a complete zero out there.
You can't, and so far that's what he's been throughout this series. And look, the other thing that stands out after 2 games is this physical edge that the Predators may have thought that they had, and the physicality that they wanted to play with, and trying to find that right balance. I mean, it's pretty clear that Carolina's not going to back down from that, and I think Carolina at times has been the more physical team so far in this series, and I did not expect that heading into this series. So that's something to monitor as you move ahead here into Game 3. We'll continue the discussion on the Predators when we come back. Bob, hang with us on our phone line. We'll get to you coming up next. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Ryan Porth here with you on this Thursday morning in Middle Tennessee, discussing a 3-0 loss last night for the Predators in Game 2 of their series against Carolina. Preds down 0-2, heading back in on Friday for Game 3 at home. Taking your thoughts all show long on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. 1025. Let's go to our 1025 The Game phone line and welcome in Bob from Antioch, who wants to weigh in. Bob, thanks for hanging with us. Thanks for calling into Robby and Rexrode.
Good morning, guys. I'm trying to be realistic. I don't think that we have an answer to Carolina, regardless of whether we put out the heavy physical lineup or the more skilled lineup. I think that Carolina is just better than the Predators. They're bigger, faster, stronger, more skilled, et cetera. My question for you guys is, which people in the Predators core group, and I would include defensemen and forwards, which ones of those guys do you think are still in their prime, and which ones do you think are a little bit past, either because of getting older or because of being worn down with injuries?
Hi, thanks for the call, Bob. We appreciate it. I mean, that's something right now I think is a big question with this group, because from an age perspective, every one of them should still be in their prime. That's I think maybe the most frustrating thing if you're a Predators fan is you've signed a lot of these guys to contracts, and it's not like you've not seen them play well in big moments before. You have. That's how they got the contracts that they received, because they have played well at big moments before. But when you start talking about the core of this team, like obviously Jossi's still in his prime. He's playing really well for the most part. He had a bad game 1. I thought he responded well in game 2. I think Forsberg is still in his prime and still looks like it. Outside of that, like Johansen, Duchesne, Arvidsson, they should all still be in the prime. They just don't look like it. They're not playing like they're still in the prime of their careers, and that's a problem as you move forward here. And so to what we talked about yesterday, Joe, with John Hines saying, look, we can make the lineup changes we want to make, and we can mess around on like the periphery of this lineup and change things up a little bit, but none of it's really going to matter if your top players don't step up and play well. To me, that continues to be the case with this group. That continues to be the talking point with this group, where some of their big-time players that they're paying a lot of money to just have not played well enough to justify that salary. And if you're not going to get that level of production out of them, it's going to be very difficult to win.
Yeah, and I might add Ellis to that. I mean, it's interesting. I think Ellis and like Granlund, again, those are examples of guys who I thought were like really good this year. But there is also the difference in playoff and regular season, as we talk about. And that's what it's about, man. It's about now. And I can't honestly go past Josi and Forsberg in terms of players on this team that you feel like are, to Bob's question, in their prime, but also consistently capable of stepping up at this time of year.
I would add Ekholm to that list as well, but that's probably about it.
Good call. That absolutely. No, I mean, I think Ekholm is a guy who, and hey, maybe not as much with Josi, but what is it about Ekholm and Forsberg? I mean, they can be very physical. You have to be able to have that to your game, I think, a lot in the playoffs. So it's a big problem. It's a big problem. And, I think like with Granlund here, we've talked so much. I said this after the trading deadline, okay, let's see what happens. And this is his third postseason with the Preds. He has 12 postseason games with the Preds. He has 3 points, and he has way too many nights like the last 2 nights where it's just different in this atmosphere of the playoffs, where all of a sudden he just looks a little bit overmatched because people are playing so physical. I mean, talk about physicality in this series, guys. Canes have 108 hits. The Preds have 88 hits in 2 games. So we talk about the Preds wanting to get them in the phone booth. Well, Canes seem all right in the phone booth right now.
And to Bob's point, I mean, the Canes are so good, and I think that this at times gets lost in the discussion. Like, to me, I'm coming in today, I've been very, very critical of the Predators and their performance last night. I guess I'm probably taking too much away from Carolina and what they're able to do. They're just really good. I mean, they are a very, very good hockey team. That is not a surprise to anybody. We knew how good Carolina was coming into this series. But to your point, I mean, you go into this game last night, you split up Josi and Ellis. Yosi's playing with Carrier. Ellis is playing with Ekholm last night, so it's a different look. I kind of liked it. I thought the look worked out a little bit better for the Predators in that game last night. But I still thought there were some times last night where Ellis is just getting shoved off the puck, and he's not able to be as effective as we've grown accustomed to him seeing. So this is an issue for the Predators as they move forward here, regardless of what happens the rest of this series. And I think one of the frustrating things is as well, we talk about size, we talk about physicality and how that relates to, you know, the core of this group and the production that we've seen. Well, one guy that should be probably better prepared to handle the physicality than anybody else the Predators have is Ryan Johansen. The guy is huge, and we've seen it. He's almost impossible to move when he gets to the middle of the ice, and he's just not able to get there enough. Like, he's got to be a guy that when you get into a playoff-type battle like this, and we've seen him do it time and time again, you got to use that size. You got to use that physicality, and I don't think he's doing anywhere near a good enough a job of that in this series so far.
There was really only one time last night of the 7 power plays, and correct me if I'm wrong, where I noticed him in front of the net. There was a power play in the second period where they were starting to get a little bit more zone time and a couple of chances, and it looked like he could have had a deflection opportunity.
Yep.
But that's like the only time last night that I noticed him in front of the net on the power play. Now, granted, they didn't have much zone time on the power play.
They did not.
But to your point, that is something that hasn't happened in 5 years, and I don't know if that's really going to change, you know? Like, I don't know how you really change that unless you just drive it home with him that he 100% has to be in front of the net or else he's not on the power play. Like, I don't know how you change that.
But the bottom line is, last year in the bubble, 17, 18, we've seen him overall be a lot more effective in the postseason.
Sure,
and
for sure.
He's a guy who, some of these guys, it's like, I don't know. Like Arvidsson, I don't know. I don't know if he can really do much in this series. Johansen, I still think absolutely can. He's got more to give.
Let's go back to our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. JD texting in. From the outside looking in, it seems that Hines and the Preds aren't able to make changes that affect the outcome of games while in the game. I think one thing we've gotten accustomed to over the last few years is Laviolette firing up the guys and rallying the troops between periods and them coming out with some firepower. Just doesn't seem like they can make adjustments to help them win. I don't buy that. Like, I think they've made adjustments. First off, this is a different matchup. I think this Carolina team is really good. This is one of the best teams the Predators have played in the playoffs in a long time. This Carolina team is really good.
Might be the best team they've played in a playoff series since, what, Detroit in 2008? Chicago in 2010?
Well, Pittsburgh probably, but yeah.
Definitely better.
Yeah.
But I would
Winnipeg
almost –
18 was pretty good.
Yeah.
Listen.
I think this is very comparable to Winnipeg in 18.
They're pretty good.
Just how this team is built.
Let me just say this, and I've seen too much of this already. Guys, they did not need to be fired up anymore. They could not have played with better effort. They could not have played with more desperation, okay? It bothers me. Like, guys, watch the game. They aren't as good as that team. They didn't execute. They're getting their butt kicked against a superior team. They don't need to be fired up anymore. They are fired up. They are playing their guts out, and it's still not working.
Yes, I mean, this gets way overblown in the playoffs about how it boils down to effort and which team wants it more. You got two teams playing hard, and right now it's pretty clear Carolina's a lot better. That's what my takeaway has been from the first two games of this series. Two teams working hard. The Predators' execution at times on the power play has been god-awful, and there's no way to get around that. but I don't think it's because of a lack of effort. I think the players have got problems on the power play. For whatever reason, the mojo that this core group once had, they've not had now in a pretty long time, and that's something that we've talked about a lot here on the show. But it's not always as simple of they're just not trying hard enough out there. That's just not how professional sports work.
Like Laviolette and some of those runs, like, get fired up, guys! And all of a sudden they play. I mean, no. I think that, like, the motivation part of a coach is during the slog of a regular season. When it's like, oh, here comes game 53 and here comes game 71, right? That I think is a challenge. You get to this time of year, man, they all want it. And, I mean, I'm looking at last night, looking at Benning and Martinook and some of the stuff we saw. I mean, they're I mean, these guys want it. They just, right now, they can't figure out how to beat that team.
When we come back, there was an interesting exchange last night in the post-game press conference between our own Joe Rexrode and Predators head coach John Hynes. I think it may be a little misunderstanding was at play. We'll get to that coming up next. This is Robby and Rexrode live from the Wholesale Link Studios, powered by RumbleOn.com here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Welcome back in, hour number 2 of Robby and Rexrode on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Ryan Porth here with you on this Thursday morning in Nashville, Tennessee, reacting to a Game 2 loss for the Predators last night, 3-0 against the Carolina Hurricanes. Predators down 0-2, heading back here for Game 3 coming up on Friday. We got a lot to get to today here on the show. We're taking your thoughts on our text line all show long, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. Joe, we've talked a lot about the power play so far and the loss itself. There was another interesting moment last night after the game regarding yourself, our good friend Steve Lehman from Channel 5 here in Nashville, and Predators head coach John Hines as well. Bit of a spicy reaction from John Hines last night in the postgame. Let's hear that exchange, hear that audio last night. Joe Rexrode, Steve Lehman, and Predators head coach John Hines.
John, we talk a lot in these playoffs about goalies stealing games. Did you think that Saros played one of those games and that it was basically squandered tonight?
Is that you? Is that Joe?
Could you hear me? You got me?
Yeah. Did you ask if our goalie stole the game or their goalie?
Well, no, what I was saying was Saros's performance tonight sort of a classic, goalie stealing a game in the playoffs, that obviously you didn't win, but it was, what about the squandering of his performance?
I thought our team played well.
John, when you're down 2-0, and obviously there were a few mistakes in game one, and then tonight the power play woes, what do you hang your hat on, or what do you take as a positive to get some, I guess, positive mojo going into game three?
Regarding what?
Just the way you're playing. How do you take a positive or have a positive mentality going into game three?
I think the last two questions, like, did we watch the same game? I think when you look at the hockey game, we played a pretty good game. I thought their goaltender made some really good saves. We had good looks. I think you look at shot attempts, you look at shots, you look at offensive zone time, you look at how the game was played. We've got to do a better job on the power play, but I think the last two questions, I think there's a lot of good things to come in the game. We're in a series. We're a better team than we were in the first night. We obviously know the power play has got to be better, but I think there's a lot of positive going out of this game and then coming home.
All right, so obviously a pretty interesting exchange there from Joe Rexrode to Steve Lehman and Predators head coach John Hines as well. So, Joe, let's start with your question there and the response by Hines. What do you think happened there? What were you trying to convey with that question, and what do you think happened in the postgame press conference last night?
Well, I still don't did he actually that's what I was trying to is he trolling me when he's like, Joe, do we have Joe? And I'm like, oh, he can't hear me. Like, we got Zoom issues.
That was my favorite part of the whole thing.
I don't know.
Joe, is that Joe? Joe, is that you?
Is that you? Hello? Is there anybody out there? So for some backstory on this, obviously it's a wacky time in the world. I'm covering this game from my family room. I have family members in there. I mean, I suppose I probably should have isolated myself. But yeah, as far as I know, I think covering this team on the road right now, the only person, I'm talking broadcast crews, print, TV, whatever, I think is Gentry Estes from the Tennessean.
Yeah.
I think he's the only person who was actually in Carolina. And hey, good for him and good for them for going. I mean, you get to watch the hockey game live, and then we all get on the Zoom call where you get unmuted for a second and then you're back on mute. So the backstory here is after that all happened, Katie Rexrode, my wife, who of course rips my mac and cheese yesterday, she was like, that was one of the dumbest questions you've asked. I'm like, what?
Thanks,
was
Katie.
it really that bad? Honestly, as I hear so that's a steal the game playoff performance from Saros, but he didn't win, because his team didn't score. So that was my question, and I assumed that John would say something about Saros's performance there. But was he ticked at the question? Is he thinking forward, trying to get a little fiery for his team? I don't know. I mean, again, the funny thing about that whole thing is, as you guys know, I actually was saying they played a lot better. I think of the show today, I'm the most up on how they played 5-on-5 of the three of us. But then we get that response. So I don't know. I mean,
well, it just felt like he totally misunderstood what you were saying. That's what it felt like to me is. We had the confusion to start the question. It felt like to me what you were asking was Saros was great. Does it feel like, not being able to capitalize for him wastes a performance like that? Is basically what you're asking.
See? Where were you when I needed you? Where were you when I needed someone to clearly speak for me?
I didn't think it was that hard of a question to understand, but I do think there was a misunderstanding there that led to the answer that we saw. Now, Layman's question, I mean, I thought that was pretty clear too. So I don't know what was going on last night, but it kind of felt like those last two questions of that press conference, maybe just not being on the same page and the Zoom effect taking over last night.
Yeah, and look, and there's a lot of reaction, of course, off this, and a lot of overreaction. People, probably more people, angry at him. But I've seen a variety. I've seen the whole, this is what happens. Nashville media, you back down. You had a chance to, I don't know, what was I supposed to do? You can't handle the truth, John Hines. What? I don't know what people are supposed to do here, but a lot of reaction to it. And look, man, I mean, I think he felt better about how his team played, and he should, but let's keep it within reason. We're talking about, I mean, Layman's just asking about, basically what can you take forward? The power play was terrible. No one can argue that. And they played better, but again, I'm seeing 52 hits for the Canes, 39 for the Preds. I'm seeing 17 blocked shots for the Canes, 10 for the Preds. We know about the power play. I mean, it was better. It obviously wasn't good enough. And I think his performance was good enough. Actually, one of my big takeaways from two games is I think he's responding to this pressure tremendously. I still had questions about, okay, let's see him in this environment. It's a great team in a tough environment, and also with all the pressure that he knows is on him and what this could mean for the future. I think he's responded beautifully. He didn't get enough help last night. So Hines can be happy with the team playing better, but I don't know that it was a great performance.
No, see, I had a big problem with this in the postgame last night. I was going to save this for a little bit later, but I got a big time after the series against Arizona vibe in this postgame last night where, hey, we played well. We just get the result. Nobody cares. It's the playoffs. There is one thing that matters. Did you win the game or did you not win the game? I am so sick and tired of the Predators going with this, hey, we played pretty well, 5-on-5 stuff. You didn't play that well. You didn't score a goal. So I got a little bit too much of that vibe. We had some people in our text line pointing this out too. Got a texter that says, so sick and tired of the we played well mentality. I get it. It's 2 games into a series, so you're trying to build some positive momentum and some positive thoughts heading into game 3. But I am so tired of this. We played pretty well 5-on-5. I know that the special teams and the power play went 0 for 7 and looked abysmal, and we didn't execute well enough. But we played well. Like that to me has got to stop from the Predators.
Yeah, well, and I think, last year it was more infuriating because it was against Arizona. It's like, right. Oh, goody. You outplayed Arizona and lost in 4. I mean, what are we talking about here? I mean, this was going into it, a series no one picked them to win. They are overmatched. They are clearly the inferior of the 2 teams. So to a point, it's okay to say, okay, hey, you matched up with them for a game. There's some positives to take out of it. Fine. But, yeah, you don't want to overplay that because I agree. I mean, that gets infuriating, and it is about winning and losing. And, again, you didn't score a freaking goal.
Yeah, so, look, you can point to a lot of things from last night's game that were better than Game 1. I still don't think the offensive performance was all that much better than Game 1. I'm sure people disagree with that. I didn't feel like the Predators were very dangerous at all last night in the offensive zone. But this idea that they played really well and the did you watch the game thing from John Hines, yes, I watched the game. I didn't come away thinking that y'all were like clearly the better team in this game. I just didn't. This was not a game to me that like Alex Nedeljkovic just stole from the Predators. I did not think they were anywhere near threatening enough offensively. And when you go 0 for 7 on the power play, you can talk about playing well 5-on-5 all you want. 0 for 7 on the power play is the story coming out of the game last night, and that's going to have to be something the Predators own up to at some point.
Yeah, we're right. And look, let's also keep in mind, and look, whatever you say, people are gonna run with it. But I'm sure John Hines was frustrated after that game. He was frustrated at not scoring a goal at that question, the idea that they did squander a great performance from Saros. And so sometimes you get, stuff said after emotional playoff games that, that people get mad about, but you got to keep that in context too. I mean, the questions, I think, my question was convoluted, so it could have been clear. I thought Layman's was dead on. I mean, what can you take from this? There are some positives, but yeah, it's hard to buy total defiance. And, you guys did not see all the great things that we did after a game in which you didn't score and your power play was a joke.
When we come back, we'll continue the discussion on the Predators. Got a lot of thoughts to get to on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. Also get into UC Saros' performance as well. It was spectacular for the Predators last night. Did the Predators just totally blow one of those game-stealing performances that we knew they were going to need heading in to this series? We'll get to that next. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Ryan Porth here with you on this Thursday morning in Nashville, Tennessee, discussing a Game 2 loss for the Predators last night against the Hurricanes. Taking your thoughts on our text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. Scott on the text line says, sadly enough, some of the Preds elite players are not playing to their potential, and this is a shortened season. I wonder what a full season would do in this discussion as well. I don't know what that has to do with this playoff series, but, I mean, to his point, it's not just this season with some of these guys. We're going on 2, sometimes in some cases 2.5, 3 seasons of some of your elite guys, some of your guys that are making a whole lot of money that are not playing up to the standard that you need them to play at. And I think we're well past the point at this point where it's gone from concerning to a gigantic problem with this team. Like, you've got to find a way to get Ryan Johansen to produce, to get Matt Duchene to produce, to get Victor Arvidsson to produce. Like, this is no longer a concern. It's a massive problem for this Predators team as they move forward here.
Yeah, no question. I mean, look, it's it's a trajectory that we talked about, this kind of trajectory change, positive, sustained positivity for the first time in a couple years, and it has been. But again, from one of the worst teams in the league that was about to be blown up, we thought, to 4th place. Now, still sustained, really good, encouraging play with young players involved, but the bigger question here of like how close is this team really to being a contender, and what steps would have to be taken to make it so. I mean, I think this series is again helping illustrate, this team with this many key players and highly paid players not performing like this. And it's been too much of this, again, going back to 2019 from then to now, really. It can't give you that much optimism about, this team being close.
Let's go back to the text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Ryan in Nashville texting in. What would you guys say about taking out Arvidsson and Goodbranson and putting in Rocco and Ben Harper back in the lineup? Also, I love UC and love the way he played the last 2 games, but do you think about going to Pekka in Game 3? What does Pekka Rinne, or what does UC Saros have to do for us to stop having this conversation every day? Like, let me say this slowly. Pekka Rinne is not going to play in this series. Pekka Rinne should not play in this series. I don't know why this is so difficult to comprehend. Saros has been the best goalie in the league the last 2 months. Pekka Rinne is not going to play. What has Saros done these first 2 games that you would consider like taking him out?
I don't know. I don't know.
I feel like Michael Scott right now.
Play.
Yeah.
If a game gets out of hand, maybe you'll see Pekka Rinne, but no, I don't get it. It's the sentiment. It's the sentimentality of Pekka Rinne, right? I'm gonna chalk it up to that because there's no hockey reason to even consider that. That's the one spot. A couple others. Again, Yossi. Hines leaned on him heavily last night. I thought he responded, but Saros untouchable.
UC Saros was unbelievable last night. UC Saros was the only reason why that game was close in the 3rd period and why you had a chance to tie the game yet again with an extra man on the ice in the last 90 seconds of the game. I do not understand why people want to just take Saros out when Saros has been unbelievable for the last 2+ months.
I don't get it. It's really just mind-boggling to me. The Pekka thing, and this is not just Ryan that said this. I mean, we've gotten this a lot on our text line the last couple of weeks of why can't Pekka play in the playoffs? Like, can't Pekka do this? Look, I love Pekka Rinne. He is maybe the best professional athlete I've ever dealt with, not only in terms of what he does on the ice, but also just dealing with him. He's awesome. He's great. He's the best player in the history of the franchise. There's no reason for him to be in the net right now. Zero. There's no reason. UC Saros has been awesome. UC Saros has been great this series so far. So we've got to stop with this conversation. We're getting to the point now, I'm not even going to start entertaining this stuff anymore on the text line. It's ridiculous.
I like how mad it's getting you.
Thank you.
Hey, I want to go to the text line real quick, too. Like, I got to give some props to our guy, Ben, who is consistently – I mean, I like Ben's consistency. On the text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com.
Yes.
All he has today is should have prepared for the future instead of this trash. Hey, man.
You love it when somebody uses the word trash. That's what this boils down to.
Yeah, trash, toxic. If you use those words,
dog water.
Dog water. Yes, exactly. Hints of home.
Is it actually Brennan and not Ben?
Could be.
Maybe it is. Maybe it's Bren. Maybe Ben is Bren. Yeah. But hey, Ben is an example of someone who's not flip flopping on anything. He is consistently like, this is garbage, and But the Pecorine stuff, man. Like we gotta stop that one.
Let's go back to the text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Rainey texting in. People keep saying star players regarding our main guys. We really need to stop calling them stars because they do nothing star worthy. I can't disagree with that. I mean, look, Roman Yossi's a star. I think Philip Forsberg is a star. Philip Forsberg is not a superstar, but I think he's a star.
Yep.
But other than that, I mean, it's hard to really put that label on anybody else.
No one else deserves it. You got some other really good players, and again, Ekholm. There's an example of someone who is a very good player. And I think steps up in the postseason. But the forward group is loaded with people who don't deserve that title, and too often, in too many cases, are going from good to really good in the regular season to invisible in the postseason.
Let's go back to the text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Got a text that says, after last night's uninspiring performance, I'm ready to see some huge changes. Activate Tomasino, bench the $8 million slackers, play Ferentz and Pitlick, and bench Goodbranson. Give me something to look forward to. We've gotten a lot of that today on the text line, too, is it's time to start playing the young kids in the playoff series. They're not going to do that. I mean, they're not bringing in David Ferentz to play in the playoff series. They're not bringing in Rem Pitlick. I understand the thought process behind it. I can promise you 2 games or 3 games, 4 games, whatever the Predators have left in this series, that's not going to make that much of a difference in the long-term progression and development of these young guys in their careers. I can promise you.
Do you entertain Tomasino if they struggle again offensively in Game 3?
Well, at that point, if they
struggle
get
again shut out and lose?
Yeah.
I mean, if they get shut out and lose, and they're down 3-0, maybe. But, I mean, look, right now, I'm going to inject a little sunshine, maybe too much sunshine for some people, but plenty of teams have been down 2-0 after being on the road to start a playoff series.
Sure.
If you're the Preds, the mindset is win 1 game. Rally around that crowd. It's going to be an incredible atmosphere, the best atmosphere in that building since certainly I would say the Dallas series of 2 years ago, right? It's a playoff environment, mostly packed arena. Get 1 game, and all of a sudden you're 1 away from tying the thing. This isn't over yet. I don't think it's going to go far because I think Carolina is just flat out better, okay? But
sure.
Like the Preds are not in punt mode right now, nor should they be.
No, I mean, we've seen them on many different occasions in history of this franchise go down 0-2 and come back home and tie this thing up at 2. Now, I will say, I don't have a ton of confidence that's going to happen this time around, but you can't just approach this if you're the Predators going into Game 3, down 0-2 in the series, and just say, all right, let's put every single one of the young guys out there. Now, to some of these texters' point about bringing in, taking out Eric Goodbranson, I mean, my point's been made clear on that. Yes, take him out. But, hey, apparently they love him. He's been in there both times. I mean, he wasn't horrible last night, so I'll give him that.
Hey, that's the nicest thing you said about him on this show.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
You're a Goodbranson stan all of a sudden.
All of a sudden, I
don't know if I would echo that sentiment, but hey.
Look, I had to be nice at some point here on the show day. I've been a little feisty today, trying to get things figured out here on the program. When we come back, we'll continue the conversation on the Predators. We got a lot of text to get to on the text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. You're listening to Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 1025, The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game, streaming live on Periscope, on YouTube, and on Twitch as well. Taking your thoughts on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. Mike from Montana texting in, fans, put in the young guys, same fans. We want Rene. There's been some of that on the text line today, that's for sure. Ryan from Nashville texting back in saying, didn't mean the Pekka part of that text at all. Just wanted to get you fired up this morning. You succeeded. Way to go. Yeah, it worked. It's not just Ryan. There have been a few calls for Pekka Rene on the text line.
Maybe they should put Good Branson in goal, Robby. What do you think about that?
I think that, you know what? Might be better than what happens on defense. See what happens on that front there. Let's go back to the text line driven by Wilson County.
Branson on the power play.
Well, could see that.
Good Branson with some power play time.
Well, I will say this.
Considered this yet?
I will say this. If you put Good Branson on the power play last night, it probably couldn't have been worse. Probably not. So I will give him credit there.
I mean, he might have knocked someone out of the way, maybe, something.
Maybe so. Let's go back to the text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. CC texting in, I was for keeping the team together and evaluating after the season. I'm glad the team played well and made the playoffs. I didn't expect them to win the cup. They've pretty much proven what I expected. It's time to move on from some of the core players. I'd vote moving on from Ellis, Arvidsson, Duchesne. It just didn't work out. If the management team is not confident that Rocco and Fabro can play every day, then they need to go as well. So CC is going to clean house. Everybody's gone.
Well, I will say, Fabro he's an interesting case. I mean, I still think he's got a future. He's a really skilled guy. I mean, I like his upside, but it's not great that he is, a scratch at this point in his career in this series with, to your point, to an extent, guys like Good Branson out there.
Let's go back to the text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Michael from Hendersonville texting in all capital letters. Put Pekka in net. He helps on the power play. He's much better a goal scorer than Saros is. Are you mad, bro? Thank you, Michael. We appreciate that.
That's a fair point. That is a fair point.
You are more likely to score a goal with Pekka than you are with UC. I mean, that's fair to say.
We saw in the Liverpool soccer game the other day where the goalie went down to the other side of the pitch and headed in a goal. So there has been an example in a sport here recently where a goalie scored a big goal.
Yes.
In all seriousness, yeah, I mean, I wrote this at The Athletic, and I don't think I've ever thought this before. Maybe you guys can recall this. The best player on the Preds power play was their goalie.
Yes, seriously.
I've never heard that before.
No, I haven't either.
It's an amazing development.
That's absolutely what happened last night. Saros was the best player for the Predators on the power play last night. So that obviously that's a big problem. I don't think the Predators' power play is just all of a sudden going to figure it out and they're going to become lethal in this series. But at some point, is it too much to ask to get set up? Can you get set up on the power play? And Joe, here's another thing that drove me nuts last night after the game, and that is the blame on the coaching staff for the power play. I'm not saying that all the power play last night that there were enough adjustments made, and I don't know what sort of work they did in between games 1 and game 2 to try to figure things out on the power play. But at what point with this power play and with this team are we going to stop putting the blame on the coach? They've had different coaches. There have been 5 people in charge of the power play over the course of the last 3 years. The results have largely looked the same. At what point is this on the players? At what point do the players have to share the responsibility in this? I get it. The coach is the easiest thing to point to. Joe, we talked about this earlier this year when they were struggling and things weren't going well. There's a lot of heat on John Hines, and that flipped. A lot of praise towards John Hines at the end of the season. At what point are we going to stop blaming coaches for the players not being able to execute on power play? They've had 5 people in charge of the power play the last 3 years. The results are the exact same.
Well, maybe they need a 6. Look, I agree. There's so much you can do. And they've tried a lot of different things over the last few years. I do think that just the power play, I mean, that is one area where, you can change things up. You can as a coach, going into a game, that's one of the right. You have your system, right, but your special teams, as my understanding is, that's something where game to game. I mean, you have some things that you tweak and adjust, and you're constantly trying to work on that. And obviously, you're trying to match it with what your opponent is doing. It's a very good opponent in that way. But yeah, I think beyond the power play, Robby, I think the bigger question of like the people jumping to like Hines right now, I think they're ignoring the bigger story. I mean, they're ignoring the story that the core players, as we've talked about today on the show, you got some people who are paid like they are elite players, but they do not perform that way. And that is largely preceding John Hines in Nashville. So I said this stuff back when they were plummeting toward the bottom of the league, and people were talking about fire John Hines. I'm like, you got that. That's not what we're looking at here. Who built the team, and how many of these guys are way underperforming their salaries? So, I guess I think I share your frustration, but on a larger scale, beyond the power play stuff.
Let's go to our 102.5 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, and welcome in Rob from Franklin, who wants to weigh in. Rob, thanks for calling into Robby and Rexrode.
Oh, thanks, and good morning. Bit of a rough game to watch last night, and I kind of was going to hang on a thread that you just mentioned. I think that the larger theme, nobody's mentioned Poyle, but the larger theme is very much in how you've actually built the team and the strength of the team. You take Carolina, and they're extremely fast. They're very hard on the puck, and they do not allow you to settle. So on the power play, where you look when we are good, we settle. We take the puck. We do some good things, going to the weak side wing, who would be Tolvanen. There's no way he's going to settle to get his eye on a shot. One, they do a wicked job of screening and blocking, and two, they apply constant pressure. So, but the one question is aside from Forsberg, over the last, say, 10 years, who has Poyle picked in the draft that has come up and been an elite player? He's had to trade for, he actually traded for Forsberg. He didn't draft him either. So who's the one player that he drafted that is the Sebastian Aho of the group? And I'll give you the answer. Nobody, because he hasn't done it, because he's got a terrible eye for forward talent, and that will be the Achilles heel of this team forever and a day.
Hey, thanks for the call, Rob. We appreciate it. I mean, I think to his point, it's certainly fair to point out that when it comes to drafting elite forwards, this franchise has struggled with that. Now, it's not been a complete zero either, that some people try to point it out to be in terms of drafting really good forwards. I know we've had a discussion about Victor Arvidsson today, and he has not been good as of late. That's still a pretty good draft pick by the Predators. I mean, finding a guy like that in the fourth round, he's been pretty good. Patrick Hornquist at the end of the seventh round, that's a pretty good draft pick. But to Rob's point, there's not been this homegrown guy like a Sebastian Aho that you feel good about being an elite player in the league. Now, some of that is a credit to the Predators because they've never really been in a position to draft that guy for the most part. But I don't think there's any question that drafting forwards has been much more difficult for this franchise than drafting defensemen has been.
Well, right. I mean, it's because if you flip it around to the defensemen, I mean, this league is full of guys that they found and drafted either on their team or other teams who are elite players, right? I mean, there's a massive difference, right, in the drafting eye for defensemen versus forwards. Now maybe Tolvanen keeps growing into something special. Tomasino, there's hope for him, but I think there's to me there seems to be a huge difference in effectiveness in finding one versus the other.
When we come back, we'll continue the conversation on the Predators. Ryan Porth's got a thought to get to on Eeli Tolvanen as well. Coming up next, this is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game.
Okay, John. So, I mean, the team is still down 0-2 in the series. So what, when you get back to Nashville and sort of regroup, what is your message to this team in trying to dig out of this 0-2 hole?
You got to win one. You got to win one game. Let's take the lessons out of this one. We did lots of good things. The game could have went either way. We've got to adjust some things on the power play, and you're in a series. You have to win the next game. We have to focus on winning one game. That's what our objective is. We're coming home. We're coming in front of our fans in a home building. I think there's lots to build off of this game, and we'll be ready just like we were tonight.
That was Predators head coach John Hynes after the game last night, discussing the approach heading into Game 3 for the Predators coming back home. Just try to win one. Get this series back to 2-1, and then take your chances from there. That's going to be the approach the Predators take coming up on Friday in Game 3. Joe, let's go back to our text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. We're talking about the power play. I asked the question, at what point does the blame fall on the players and stop falling on the coaches for the power play? I got a text on the text line that says, Barry Trotz, the power play got really good when he went to Washington. Peter Laviolette has Washington's power play third in the league. I wonder what the difference is. I wonder what the difference is, too. Maybe having a guy like Alex Ovechkin could help on the power play, or TJ Oshie.
Well, and again, so, look, the coaches have got to spend hours between now and Game 3 trying to figure this out. But did they suddenly get smart this season when, for a few weeks there, it looked like the best power play we've seen in years?
Yeah.
I looked like Ellie Tolvanen had a little impact. Forsberg, Joe's. I mean, they put those guys in position, but it's players. And I do think, maybe the Canes are a little bit in the Preds' head in general, not just in the power play, but especially on the power play in terms of just being panicky. They're hearing footsteps all the time. So again, you credit the other team too. They're really good at what they do on the kill, but it's impossibly good. They shouldn't be that good.
Right. I mean, they're really good. You ought to be able to get in the zone and set up. And it's interesting. Yesterday, we're heading into Game 2, and we're talking about this power play. It's going to have to make a difference at some point, and maybe that's reason enough just to put Ellie Tolvanen back in the game. And look, I don't really like singling a person out after a game like last night where nobody scores and the power play looks as bad as it did. I thought Ellie Tolvanen was pretty bad last night. Not just on the power play. I thought 5-on-5, he got knocked off the puck repeatedly. He did not engage himself into the battle like I was expecting that he would. In terms of the response game that I was looking for after being scratched in Game 1, I was not impressed by what I saw from Ellie Tolvanen last night. Am I being too harsh? What did you see from Tolvanen last night, Joe?
Well, maybe he's resentful. Maybe that's the whole problem. Yeah. No, I didn't think he was very good. He had, in the third period on the power play, he had what looked like a good look. And I wanted, was it Dougie Hamilton blocked it? Somebody
Dougie Hamilton.
Put their leg out. Yeah, and who knows? I mean, that was his spot. And that could have been interesting if he gets it through. But, look, I'd still probably lean toward keeping him in, I guess, because of the power play. But because you've got to hope that you can actually get to the point of him mattering on the power play. But, 5-on-5. I agree that he looked overmatched at times too. Again, we talked earlier on the show. Got Mikhail Granlund. I mean, I thought a lot. He was thrown around a bit, and he's not the biggest, strongest guy. But some of those guys. I mean, 108, 88 in hits. I know you have to take some of these stats with a grain of salt a little bit, but I would not have predicted that after 2 games that the Canes would have 20 more hits than the Preds.
Ryan Porth, what did you think of Ellie Tolvanen last night in his first game of the series for Tolvanen last night against Carolina?
I was not impressed with him. Also, his first playoff game, so we have to keep that in mind with Tolvanen. The one thing that really kind of got stuck up my craw last night, and it was related to Tolvanen, was we've been talking all morning about how they didn't have many opportunities. There was a chance in the third period. I forget who passed it over to Ellis, but Carolina did not offer a lot of space in the offensive zone for the Preds in either of the first two games. But where they probably broke down the most was on a chance where Ellis is streaking in from the neutral zone. He gets a pass from the other side of the ice, and he's got this momentum towards the net. And it was really the only time all night where I got on the edge of my couch and was like, this is it.
Yeah.
This is a golden opportunity. And Ellis shoots the puck. Nedeljkovic makes a nice glove save. They show the replay, and Tolvanen is crossing in front of the net and then just olays out of the way, and Nedeljkovic is able to see the puck. Now, Aho was also in between Ellis and Nedeljkovic, so I didn't get a great look in terms of whether Aho was screening Nedeljkovic. But that was an opportunity for Tolvanen to just park his butt in front of Nedeljkovic. And if he does that, I am 99% sold that puck goes in. Because if Nedeljkovic doesn't see that, Ellis, he got it on net. I think that goes in and it's a 1-1 game. And I'll chalk that up to some inexperience. Maybe a couple years from now, Tolvanen does stop right there and does the RV jump like we've seen from Arvidsson here in the last few years on the power play. But that was a golden opportunity that I think if Tolvanen had just parked his butt in front of Nedeljkovic, that puck goes in. And to compare it to something that happened in the Colorado game, right after that, Gabriel Landeskog goes right in front of Bennington on McKinnon's first goal and just stands there. And Bennington cannot see the puck, and McKinnon fires it in for the first of his 3 goals last night. And I look at that, and then I look at what Tolvanen did not do and say that was a missed opportunity last night in the third period where they needed that puck to go in because they just did not have many scoring chances.
Well, and Joe, how long have we talked about that with this group, and not just with Tolvanen and the example that Porth points out there, but how long have we talked about with this group finding somebody to go to the front of the net and stand there and take the eyes away from the goaltender? Why can't Ryan Johansen do that more often? Why can't Matt Duchene do that more often? I mean, heck, why can't Philip Forsberg do that more often? Like this has been a pretty consistent theme with this group for the last few years here now.
Yeah, no, it really has. I think it's better now than 2 years ago. You're trying to you're bringing Wayne Simmons and you're just trying to find anybody, and basically you've got Arvidsson doing the Chihuahua thing, and that's your net front presence, on the power play.
The Chihuahua.
Like last night, I thought just jumping around, but like last night, a guy I thought was fighting to do that was Luke Cunnin, for example.
Agreed.
But at times, I mean, he's battling 2 guys. Like get more traffic up there, and that's a great point by you, Porth. And to me, yeah, you can say it's his first playoff game. You got to have that experience, but he knows how to play hockey. He knows what works, and it's you pay the price when you go up there, especially in a playoff game. But you've got to do it. I thought the Preds, again, I thought their effort was desperate, and again, I thought they did a lot of good things 5-on-5, but they had some strange misses where it looked like the chemistry was off a little bit on the passing. Thought they had more opportunities where maybe a simple pass here or there, you have something, and then they had some of those opportunities where it's like, man, you needed someone in that area right then, and no one was there.
Let's go back to our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Got a texter that says, so this is coming from Joe on the text line, the thing that bothers me the most is watching Fiala playing out of his mind, and then Craig Smith scores the overtime winner last night. That was interesting. Right around the third period when the Predators are struggling to get anything done, Craig Smith puts one home in double overtime for Boston last night.
Yep.
Tough timing.
I mean, Craig Smith, Craig Smith would be here on this team right now, and probably we'd be talking about the same stuff.
Yes.
But Fiala, Fiala is that one's gonna leave a mark, just like Girard moving forward.
By the way, can we talk about this for a second, because this was just apparent to me from the broadcast last night, and I had some people that were at the game last night send me some photos. in what universe are 12,000 people in that building last night in PNC Arena? Like, I'm not very good at math, and that's part of the reason I'm doing this job is because in college I decided, all right, journalism doesn't require a ton of math. So that's part of the reason I'm here. So I fully recognize I can't count very well, but there's way more than 12,000 people in that building last night.
What's capacity there?
It's like 18.5 or something like that.
Yeah, looked like about a good 16.5.
Yeah, I mean, I saw some photos where the upper deck was a little bit more spaced out, but it looked like a full house in there. The 12,000 that's a very generous number they gave.
I think once you get to that point where you can just about fill the arena, a few more friends and family over here trickle in, a few more friends and family over here trickle in. Good atmosphere.
Hey, great atmosphere in Carolina. I'm sure it'll be a great atmosphere in Game 3 coming up on Bridgestone Arena on Friday as well. When we come back, we'll get back into the power play. That was rough last night, and it's hard to ignore. Really, that's the overriding theme for the Predators so far through the first 2 games is how inept they've been on the power play. We'll get to that coming up next. Also got some tickets to give away as well
to Game 4.
Game 4 coming up as well to begin the 8 o'clock hour. All that next. You're listening to Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Welcome back in, hour number 3 of Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Ryan Porth here with you on this Thursday morning in Nashville, Tennessee. Talking Nashville Predators, taking your thoughts all show long on our text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. Speaking of the text line, we've got some tickets to give away for Game 4 coming up on Sunday between the Predators and the Hurricanes. A little matinee hockey coming up on Sunday. Puck drop at 1:30 for Game 4. We've got a trivia question. If you get the answer right, if you're the first one to text in to the text line at 615-737-1025, you'll win a pair of tickets to go to Game 4 on Sunday between the Predators and the Carolina Hurricanes. Ryan Porth, what is today's trivia question that we can answer on the text line?
So 4 years ago today was Game 5 in Anaheim of the Western Conference Final, where the Preds won 3-1 to take a 3-2 series lead and come back home for the memorable Game 6 to win the West. Which 3 Preds players scored the 3 goals in Game 5 against Anaheim in 2017?
If you know the answer to that question, text into our text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. Which 3 players scored for the Predators in Game 5 of the 2017 Western Conference Final?
I only know one for sure, and boy, we could never forget it.
Oh, no, we can't. I know 2 for sure. I may know 3. I've got an idea for 3. I'll look at Port Taylor and see if I'm right. Already some text coming in on the text line, so make sure you get your guesses in, coming in very quickly, because people have been very quick on the response time this week with the tickets on the line. We'll get to the winner of that coming up a little bit later this segment.
We already have a winner. I don't know this person's name, but we already have a winner. The first person who texted in got it.
Oh, look at there. Way to go, people. Been really smart this week on the text line. Well done.
What is it? Give us the answer then.
So the first goal was Colin Wilson.
Yep.
The second goal was Pontus Aberg/Aberg.
Who could forget that one?
That was mine.
And then the third goal was the empty netter by Austin Watson.
I got it. All 3. Yep. There
Impressive.
You go. They're just rolling in on the text line. So congratulations to whoever got it first. We'll get your information, and you'll be going to Game 4 between the Predators and the Hurricanes coming up on Sunday at 1:30 at Bridgestone Arena. Joe, the story of the game last night, obviously, is the power play. The Predators go 0 for 7 on the power play. Look, there were a few times that they got set up, but it was pretty rare for them to get set up and to get any looks whatsoever on the power play last night. And that's one thing. Like, it's one thing to not get set up and not be able to generate any quality chances on the power play. But when you're also giving up some primo chances going the other way while you're on the power play, that's a huge problem. And that was a huge problem for the Predators last night. The best offensive chances that Carolina was able to generate in the game last night all came shorthanded while the Predators were on the power play. And, Joe, I said this on Twitter, and you and I talked about it a little bit as well. I watched a lot of hockey over the years, and maybe this is just me being prisoner of the moment, and maybe that's the case. I can't recall a power play that I've watched look worse and look like it's struggling more than the Predators' power play has through these first 2 games. It's been abysmal. They're 0 for 10 so far on the power play. I know they went 0 for 15 a couple of years ago in that series against Dallas. To me, this looks worse. It really does. Like, this has been a bad stretch for the Predators on the power play, and last night was just about as bad as it gets.
I'll still take this power play over 2019 because at least there's some fun action that results from it.
I guess so.
At least there's some excitement being generated going the other way. That was like the most mundane, it's just get it out of my face, Subban from the point again. No, I can't do it, This was at least entertaining, but man, the telegraph passes at times, but then also just the puck being taken away at other times, just one-on-one. That looked like a junior team playing an NHL team. I mean, it looked like 2 teams at 2 different levels. Doesn't make sense that you could have an extra skater and be that incapable of entering a zone. That from that perspective, I don't know that I've seen one game where that was such a problem. And, we don't see too many games where a team gets 7 power plays, right? I mean, and again, this is where I think you and I differ a little bit on the overall performance. I'd say 3 or 4 of those power plays were created by the Preds forcing the Canes to take a penalty in 5-on-5 because they were doing some good things. But then it's like, okay, now it's about to get bad for the Preds because they're on the power play. Watch out, Saros. Here it comes.
Well, yeah, and to your point, yeah, I mean, Saros had to keep his head on a swivel, to borrow a Terry Crisp term, last night while the Predators were on the power play. But, I mean, there was a power play the Predators had to close out the first period and I guess to begin the second period as well, where like the last 55 seconds of the first period, it was pretty depressing to watch the Predators try to get in the zone on that power play. I mean, it was brutal. They couldn't complete a pass. Every time they got to the blue line, that Carolina was just swatting the puck back down the ice. It didn't matter what the Predators tried. They couldn't get into the zone. And I said this earlier in the show, part of the reason I view this game, I think a little bit more harshly than some do, is because I know how good Jacob Slavin is. And he did not play for Carolina last night. I think he's by far their best defenseman. So you didn't have to worry about Slavin on the penalty kill. You didn't have to worry about Jacob Slavin taking down 26 minutes 5-on-5 either. And you still could not score a goal. You still could not generate much zone time. You didn't have a lot of quality chances offensively. Like, to me, what happens if Slavin's healthy enough to play in Game 3? Like, that's part of how I view the disappointment of last game. Is I felt like heading into that game when I saw the news that Slavin was out, I felt like the Predators had a really good opportunity in this game, and they just totally let that fall by the wayside. So maybe I'm viewing this a little bit more harshly than some people are, but not just the power play. I just was not impressed with what the Predators were doing in the offensive zone last night.
Yeah, well, look, I mean, we can all agree on the power play, and that's a good point on Slavin, no doubt. It's one guy, but a very important guy. I think they overall, again, they were over. You're also it's relative to what we just saw. Game 1 to me, I came away saying, they're just going to get dominated. After this game, I think that they did figure some things out. There were some times when we've talked about the net front presence maybe wasn't enough. And I also think there was some times where just, like just one more pass or a little more precision on this pass or, now you shoot it. There were a couple of times where I thought, there were chances for people to take shots. They didn't. There were some execution issues in the offensive zone. But, I mean, at least they had possession, right? I mean, like Game 1, most of the last 40 minutes was an eyeful of the regular season kind of domination we saw. I mean, how much optimism do you take out of that? Our buddy Jeremy K. Gover on Twitter, to the question of people who are like punt and play young guys, play Pekka, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, they are tied going to the third of Game 1. They are, last night in position, down 1-0 most of the game, but in position to potentially steal that game when Saros playing like he is. Like they're not that far. You win one game. My question is, can they figure anything out with the power play? I mean, is it going to continue to be a weapon for Carolina?
Well, even if you don't figure out how to score on the power play, like at some point figure out how to not give up 2-on-1s on the power play. That's probably the first step for the Predators that they could take heading into Game 3 here. Let's go to our 102.5 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, and welcome in Wayne from Spring Hill. Wayne, were you at the game last night?
I was actually. My flight got in about an hour ago.
So what was that like? What were your takeaways from Game 2 for the Predators last night?
Anybody who's saying UC Saros should be benched for Pekka is in some other dimension.
Agreed.
Do I still believe Pekka has it? Yes. Do I believe UC is getting it? Yes. That is not the problem that we're having right now. To answer Joe's question from last night that Coach Hines didn't answer, I believe UC Saros did play well enough to steal the game last night.
Yeah.
We have to score on the other side. We can't just, have UC make 55 saves and let's hope we get a goal.
Thanks for the call, Wayne. We appreciate it.
No, I want to say a couple other things. I'm sorry, guys.
No, go ahead.
This series probably doesn't go past 5 games. if we get one game at home, it's going to be the 12,000 Smashville fans, and they're willing them to win. That's what's got to happen. And I don't know if that's going to make a big difference to make 2 games to tie the series up. I don't know. But I think we might be able to get 1 just because of that.
Hey, thanks for the call, Wayne. We appreciate it. I mean, that's.
I agree.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's any question that the crowd has directly had an impact on Carolina and the energy that they played with. We've seen this happen at Bridgestone Arena. We know what sort of an effect the crowd can have, and especially when you've gone without it for 14 months now, when you have 12,000 people or however many people are going to be in that building on Friday night for Game 3, even though you're down 0-2 in the series, I mean, there's going to be a ton of energy in that building coming up on Friday night for the Predators. So I agree with Wayne. Like, I expect the Predators in the first period of that game to come out and play with their hair on fire on Friday night. Johansen talked about that a little bit last night as well. That's what the Predators are hoping for and hanging their hats on. Now, I also question, all right, is that going to be enough for you to tie up this series back at home when I think it's been pretty clear so far Carolina's been the better team?
Sure, but I expect it. I expect full energy. It'll be a fantastic scene in there, and it does matter. It does. Now, Carolina was kicking the Preds' butt in the regular season in front of empty arenas too. But I don't think there's any doubt that crowd played a role, and I don't know that there's a place where the crowd plays a bigger role than Bridgestone Arena. I mean it's going to be really cool for the city. I think it's going to be helpful for the team. And at some point, it still gets into execution and little decisions. And, like, they're going to be hitting the heck out of the Canes. And I'm sure, I mean, we can see where this is going with the chippiness. No surprise.
Yeah.
It's a playoff series anyway. That happens anyway. And this is going to be what? This is going to be meeting number 11 now between these teams. I mean, it's just going to build. We'll see if they can execute. But I think if there's one point of optimism, to Wayne's point there, that you bring into this, again, Saros is stepping up.
Yeah.
And I didn't know. We didn't know if he was going to be able to take this. He knows what's at stake here. And he stepped up. And so you got to feel good about that. And that's another thing that feeds the crowd, that feeds the energy. Your goaltender making some big saves early in a game. I can certainly envision the Preds getting one Friday. I don't know that I can envision them getting 2.
We got a lot of your thoughts to get to in our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. We'll get to that coming up next. Right now, though, got to tell you about my friends at FanDuel Sportsbook, and the NBA play-in tournament gives some teams one last shot to make the playoffs. We saw a great game last night between the Lakers and the Warriors as well. Lakers getting it done late in that game, but everyone can bet this round risk-free on FanDuel Sportsbook. It doesn't matter if you're new to FanDuel or if you already have an account. FanDuel has teamed up with basketball legends Charles Barkley and Kenny Smith to make sure you get your money back if you don't win. That's any user, any bet type, any game. The NBA play-in tournament is going down May the 18th through the 21st, and the FanDuel just made it even more exciting. It's all part of FanDuel's Play-In Palooza. So if you already have a sportsbook account, just open the app and opt in to claim your risk-free bet. And if you're new to FanDuel, sign up with promo code ROB to get your first bet risk-free up to $1,000 exclusively on the FanDuel Sportsbook app. You must be 21 and older and present in Tennessee. Refund issued is non-withdrawable site credit that expires in 7 days. New user risk-free bet for first real money wager only, and refund issued is non-withdrawable site credit that expires in 14 days. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Got a gambling problem? Call the Tennessee Red Line at 1-800-889-9789. 102.5 The Game and T-Mobile have partnered up to give you a chance to experience a Nashville SC game this season. Tune in every Monday to Darren, Donick, and Chase for the keyword to text in to win. Good luck from 102.5 The Game, T-Mobile, and Nashville SC. And speaking of Nashville SC, tomorrow morning, it's your chance to participate in the Nashville SC Pick to Click, brought to you by Camarena Tequila. If you guess correctly which player scores a goal in the game this Sunday night, you win a prize pack and a pair of tickets to an upcoming Nashville SC home game. We'll do that tomorrow at 9:45 here on the show. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Got a lot of thoughts to get to on the Predators on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. Got a texter that says, I'm sick and tired of the we played well mentality. 7 power plays, barely any momentum. It's a serious problem. Also, the dump and chase is not working. I'd rather see us try to play out the middle. We never have positive turnover when we dump and chase. It's time to make changes when it comes to the power play line and how we address games when we lose. Joe, what do you think of those comments by our texter there on the text line? Joe's talking on mute again, so that's number 2 today for the show.
Oh, my gosh.
Well done, Joe.
Well, John Hines would have preferred me to be on mute last night when I asked the question.
That is true.
Or, speak more clearly. Gosh, I've been doing so well, too. Now I've forgotten what we're talking about. Yeah, people upset. You know what? Heard a lot of that today, and you said it, too, and I agree. There's a limit on the, yay, we played well after a shutout loss. I think John Hines wants to take some positives into Game 3. I did have a thought last night. Is he maybe a little bit just trying to, show a little bit of feistiness in public, keep his team like that. He wants his team to be as ornery and fired up Friday as they can possibly get. And you're heat of the moment after a loss, and you did do some things better in Game 2. So all that stuff's fine. But, yeah, fans they don't want to hear that stuff. It's not as bad as a year ago, and I think Duchesne was the biggest culprit, if I recall correctly. But this whole, hey, we played our game, and, we were the better team for the majority. You lost in 4 to Arizona. There is nothing positive to take from that. Now, in this situation, you're the clear and heavy underdog. No one picked you to win. You had 2 games in a hostile building, et cetera, et cetera. So, I guess you try to take some positives into Game 3, but it's a stretch, and people are not going to want to hear all about all the good things you did in a 3-0 loss after 2 games in which you were outscored 8-2, with the other team out hitting you 108-88 and outperforming you in every metric.
Yeah, it's one of those things, and I get what John Hines is doing. You're down 0-2. You're trying to come back. You're trying to generate some positive momentum for your team heading into Game 3 and taking this thing. If you can just get Friday's game, it's 2-1. You feel good about being at home for Game 4, and then you move on, try to make it a best of 3 moving on from there. But I did. Last night, I just – and I know you and we disagree on this a little bit. I didn't think the Predators were all that good last night. I thought they were a little bit better than they were in Game 1, but it never felt like they were overly dangerous in the offensive zone to me last night. And a big part of that, of course, is also from the power play as well. And Roman Josi last night was asked about the power play. What exactly is Carolina doing on the penalty kill that's causing the Predators so many issues to get into the zone? Here's what Roman Josi had to say.
Hey, Roman, to that point, what are they doing on the penalty kill that's making it so difficult for you guys at times to even get set up on the power play?
They're very aggressive, obviously, and obviously they have a great kill. They were one of the top kills in the league, and they play very aggressive. But it's we gotta execute better. We gotta find a way to get in. We gotta find a way to get some shots. So we gotta look at our power play and just execute better.
And Joe, to that point, the texter just brought up the dump and chase on the power play. I get it. That's a popular topic of conversation. That's frustrating for fans. Sometimes teams force you to dump and chase. And when you do it, you got to go in and win the puck battle. That's what the dump and chase is for. Go in, get your defense turned around, and go win a puck battle. Carolina, on their power play, they dump and chase all the time. They just go win the puck battle. They get it, and they're able to cycle from there. I thought the Predators, number one, when they're not carrying the puck in the zone and they have to dump and chase, they're not doing a good enough job of getting to it first and battling for it along the wall. And I do think there have been times where maybe they've dumped and chased a little bit too prematurely rather than just carrying the puck in the zone. Carolina makes that extremely difficult. You heard Yossi talk about how aggressive they are. That's part of their aggression, is basically just trying to stand you up at the blue line and making you dump the puck in. But when they do that, you need to be able to generate enough speed coming in the zone where you're the first one back to that puck, and I don't think the Predators have done a very good job with that at all.
No, it's been amazing. It's been amazing to watch 5 skaters against 4 skaters have that much trouble. And again, like the counter, I think Carolina just had 3 power plays last night, right? You know, the then you watch them on their power play, and it couldn't be easier to set up. And I know there's different ways to set up your penalty kill. Actually, the Preds, can be very aggressive too at times, but it's something. There's no way that this should be acceptable to the Preds, and there's no way that this should happen again. Now I don't know if they're going to get 7 power plays again either, but whatever they get in the next game, like, that's got to be better. There's got to be a way to make them pay for the way they're playing you. This is a faster team. They are incredibly good moving the puck to each other. We know all that, but that does not explain away everything we saw last night. It was brutal.
And by the way, with everything the officials called in the game last night, and they called a lot, and some of which I thought was warranted, some of which I thought was not. How in the world did Jordan Martinook not go to the box last night for that hit on Matt Benning? I mean, they got tangled up, and Matt Benning's punching him in the top of the head last night, and they both got called for roughing on that play. But the next shift that both of them are out there, I mean, it's a clear definition of a cross-check, a push to the back in a very dangerous area. Matt Benning basically goes face first into the boards, and after everything you've called in that game, you don't call that hit? I thought that was ridiculous by the officials last night.
That was a nasty, dirty play from Martinook, and it really could have been bad. And you're right. I mean, now granted, Benning gets a 2-minute roughing for landing 6 punches on his head.
He did.
So I mean, it's different at playoff time. But no, you're right. Well, I mean, look, they've basically they've been calling trips and all. They have been very few. They have not really called penalties to me to calm things down much.
Right. No, I mean, it's been a lot of stick fouls so far in this series, and it was interesting. I mean, I had a big problem with the Duchesne offsetting penalties in game 1. I was like, all right, just drop the puck. What are we doing here? Why are we making this thing 4-on-4? But it was just amazing to me last night that of everything that was called, you let that hit by Martin go. I mean, it's right there in front of the official. Benning's got the puck, and he gets launched face first into the boards. I mean, look, obviously, if the Preds get a power play there, it probably doesn't make a difference in the game from what we saw, but I just couldn't believe that didn't get called.
Now, that was a huge miss. And again, I mean, he went into the boards, face first from quite a distance too.
Yeah.
Like that takes a powerful cross check to launch someone that far into the boards. That was nasty. I mean, it's there is some. I mean, Halla, of course, and I mean, there's some real chippiness in this series, which is fun.
Public enemy number 1, Eric Halla.
Yeah,
did not expect
41
that.
Games.
Yeah.
41 games with the Canes.
It's pretty incredible to watch their reaction to him so far in this series. We'll continue to take your thoughts on the Predators on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. Make sure you're listening to the game every weekday for your chance to win $1,000. It's the game's 1K payday, presented by Kentucky Kingdom and Hurricane Bay. Listen for keywords at 9, at noon, and at 3 o'clock as well. And when you hear it, go to theGameNashville.com and enter the keyword for a shot at $1,000. We'll be right back with your thoughts here on Robby and Rexrode, ESPN 102.5 The Game.
This hour of Robby and Rexrode is brought to you by Train. Get a great deal this spring on a new Train heating and cooling system. At Train, they test so it runs. Visit traininfo.com to find your local dealer and learn more. It's hard to stop a train.
1025 The Game will be on the road with your chance to win tickets to games 3 and 4 for round 1 of the Stanley Cup playoffs between the Predators and the Carolina Hurricanes at Bridgestone Arena. Today, Stillman Company will be broadcasting live at Social Furniture from 2 to 6 p.m. for your chance to win a pair of tickets to games 3 and game 4 as well. Darren, Donick, and Chase will be broadcasting live tomorrow at Pete and Terry's at Bridgestone Arena from 10 to 2 p.m., and we'll have a chance for you to win a pair of tickets to Game 4. So we've got tons of opportunities here on ESPN 1025 The Game for you to be in the building, both in Game 3 and in Game 4 coming up this weekend for the Predators against the Carolina Hurricanes. Welcome back in. Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 1025 The Game, taking your thoughts on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. Nate texted in, what did y'all think of the Canes' first goal? I did not think that was on Saros. I didn't think it was either. I thought it was a great play by Svechnikov to put one across the box. And Aho, it was funny because Aho actually didn't get all of it on that shot, but still, I mean, when you make a pass like that, and that's a high-level play by Svechnikov, and Aho's not going to miss on that play. I mean, you're talking about two pretty good players there for the Hurricanes. There's not much Saros could have done about that one.
Zero chance for Saros. Zero.
And he stopped a couple more after that where I thought he had zero chance, especially, I mean, the one that stands out to me, the save from last night, and he had a couple really good ones, but the save from last night that stands out to me is the 2-on-1 where you've got Brett Pesce coming down the wing, and he slides it over to Trocheck, and Saros is sliding the other direction and still somehow gets his pad on that shot. I mean, it was just an unreal save by UC Saros, and he made a couple of those. He had a couple more on Aho shorthanded that he had to make some huge stops on as well, but that stop on Trocheck I thought was the save of the night for Saros last night.
No doubt. And again, wrote about it, The Athletic. I thought it was an incredible play, and Tolvanen messed up the play. I mean, it's easy to sit here and say, hey, you messed that up. You're in the heat of the moment. You're on the power play. All of a sudden, you're defending a 2-on-1. But Tolvanen can't let it go back to Trocheck there because Saros is setting up for Pesce, and he's probably going to be fine. Pesce, Saros, isolate it on the left side. You're good. But he let it go back, so Saros somehow has to take all his momentum back the other way, and not only does he kick out to make this incredible save, he gets himself in a position to stop the rebound too. I mean, that was, again, that's the play that, to me, right there, I circled it and said, okay, if they win this game, there's your goalie steals the game moment.
Yeah.
And of course, it was still a play to circle because it was an example of why Saros deserved better last night.
So, Joe, after the game last night, the Predators find themselves in an 0-2 hole, and we started to hear some of this midway through the season with John Hynes and the coaching staff as well, and it's starting to creep back up again now that the Predators have gotten themselves into an 0-2 hole and putting a lot of blame on John Hynes and saying he's the reason they're down 0-2, which I just think is ridiculous. Now, I'm not saying John Hynes has been perfect. There have been some decisions that he's made, even with the lineup that we've talked about, that I've not agreed with in this series. And I certainly don't think that he's done like this great job in this series so far. But like, at what point with this group are we going to start placing the blame on the players? Like, they've gone down this road. They've changed the coaching staff. They brought in a different head coach. I mean, they've changed up the assistant coaches as well. They've done different things on the power play. They've had 5 different people in charge of the power play the last 3 years. Like, at what point are we going to put the responsibility for what we've seen on this core group of players? Ryan Johansen's getting paid $8 million a year. Matt Duchene's getting paid $8 million a year. Victor Arvidsson looks like a shell of himself right now. Like, to me, the story of this is twofold. Number one, Carolina's very good, and they are by far the better team in this series. I think we knew that heading into the series, but also the guys that you need to perform and have needed to perform for a while now have not done it yet in this series. And even to a certain degree, like Forsberg, he scores the goal. I think he's been okay for the most part, but you still need another level from him as well. I mean, the guys that they need to produce are not doing it, and that, to me, is the takeaway from this series so far. Even on the power play. Like, they've tried, I can promise you, with the last 3 years, they've tried just about every formation, just about everything you can try on the power play, it's on the personnel. They're the ones not getting this done. And I saw a lot of this after the game last night, placing blame at the feet of Johansen, and I understand it. He's the head coach. He's going to receive some heat when things don't go poorly. But I just think we're giving these players way too much of a pass, and quite frankly, I'm tired of it.
Well, I agree. I would also say you could take that another step and talk about the guy who puts the team together. And,
sure.
There's been plenty of that, and there will be more of that to come. But on the players specifically, I thought one guy really of this core group that we all agree has to play like they're paid, has to step up. One guy that I was really impressed with, I thought Yossi was great. I really did. I thought he was all over the place. The dude plays almost 27 minutes. He gets 8 shots on goal. Not a ton of them were great shots, but he had a couple good looks. He had 4 hits. I mean, I thought he was great. And after that, you guys tell me, who would you say would be like your second and third best players? I might go Carrier as the next best skater out there. But who would you guys say played well last night?
It's. I mean, I thought Cunnin was okay last night. I liked the response I saw from Cunnin for the most part.
Yep.
Ekholm, other than the penalty he took, I thought was pretty good as well. But I agree. Like, one guy I've been really impressed with in this series has been Carrier. Like, he continues to play really well, regardless of whether or not he's been with Ekholm or that he's been with Yossi. But at forward, I mean, outside of that, I just didn't see much. I've not seen much from this group. I expected Roman Yossi to bounce back. A game from Roman Yossi like we saw in Game 1 is pretty rare. Like, I expected him to bounce back, and he did. I thought he was really good last night. I just don't know. I mean, we talk about trying to get these players of this core group to another gear. It's been so long now. I just don't know if they can get to that other gear anymore. I really don't.
No, I think the evidence points overwhelmingly to that they can't. I mean, I think, like, how did they get here? They got here with an admittedly fantastic story, this herd line and what they do and how they attack everything and show some skill, and they establish a really powerful forecheck. The overall grit and the defensive responsibility and Saros. That's been the formula to get here, and that's great and good for them for getting here. But you want to win now? You want to beat teams like this? You better have some forwards who can not just, rise to the occasion and hang with top players on the other team, but finish. I thought Forsberg last night. I don't think Forsberg was bad. I think Forsberg had some moments, and he hit the post on that one in the third period. It was very close to the equalizer there. But again, it's Forsberg and it's Yossi, and there's not nearly enough otherwise. And Mikhail Granlund now has 3 points in 12 playoff games with the Preds.
Yep.
And this is the third straight postseason where now, of course, he struggled in entire first season, even when he came in the Fiala trade. But he played a lot better under Hines last year. Didn't see him in the bubble. He was great this year, honestly. I mean, he was one of the best players on the team this year. Not seeing him, waiting for him to do something.
Yeah, I mean, that's totally fair when it comes to Mikhail Granlund for sure. Let's go back to the text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Josh texting in. I don't disagree with you at all, Robby. The players should be held accountable for their shortcomings. My only response is that when the team was playing well the last 2 months, everyone was raving about the great coach turning things around and got the players to buy in. If he gets the credit for him playing well, shouldn't he take the flack when things aren't going well as well? I think it's a fair point brought up by Josh. Now, I still put most of the blame on the players.
Yeah, look, it's true. I mean, there's some level of team plays well, coach gets credit. Team plays poorly, coach gets blame. There's some level of that for sure. But, like, I've seen a little bit of this, how come Hines can motivate this team in the regular season to play their butts off, and now he can't do it in the playoffs? I mean, guys, their effort is they are spilling it all, okay? And I think that's probably part of his post-game demeanor is he knew that. They spilled it. They are playing their guts out. They're not executing. And so to me in hockey, there's a system and here's what you're supposed to do. And then it's on those guys on the edge. Coach is standing there behind the bench, hoping that they make just the right pass, hoping that Tolvanen recognizes that he's got to get in front of the net in a certain situation. Recognizing that here's where you take a shot. I mean, the players have got to make the plays.
When we come back, we're going to take a quick step away from the Predators. Got some more Julio Jones rumors circling around that involve the Tennessee Titans as well. We'll get to that coming up next. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Hey, Smashville, the game Nashville and Dos Equis is bringing the party to you. Text the word GOLDEN to 615-737-1025. That's GOLDEN to 615-737-1025. Now to qualify for the ultimate in-home watch party. And did I mention one lucky fan is getting tickets to a playoff game at Bridgestone Arena? Get a dose, Smashville. You must be 21 or older to enter and win. Enjoy Dos Equis responsibly. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 1025 The Game, streaming live on Periscope, on YouTube, and on Twitch as well. Joe, we've talked about the Julio Jones rumors that have been floated out there over the last few weeks regarding what his future could look like with the Atlanta Falcons. And your colleague, Jeff Schultz at The Athletic this morning, came out with a piece kind of highlighting the situation with Julio Jones, and it opens by saying, quote, the Falcons would like to trade Julio Jones. That doesn't mean it's 100% going to happen, and that doesn't mean some members of the organization don't believe the future Hall of Famer can still play when healthy. But Jones's availability on the trade market has been clear almost from the time new general manager Terry Fontenot and coach Arthur Smith landed in Atlanta. So it sounds like still a very real possibility that Julio Jones can be traded. And some teams that Schultz mentions in this piece on theathletic.com that fall into the category of maybe showing some interest in Julio Jones: the Ravens, the 49ers, the Patriots, the Indianapolis Colts, and the Chargers. And then according to Schultz, one league source said the Titans may also show interest as well, but at the moment they are close to the cap ceiling. So, Joe, we've talked about this with Julio Jones. I look at the Titans' salary cap right now and just don't really know how they would be able to make this work. But their name continues to pop up in discussions and in pieces and in articles when it comes to potential fits for Julio Jones. How much do you read into this? How much do you think there actually could be some interest, and not just interest in Julio Jones, some interest in trying to actually make something happen if you're the Titans?
Yeah, I mean, I wish I could still dunk, Robby, because I'd like to dunk on this so hard. It's not happening. Look, first of all, I will say that one interesting thing about this is obviously Arthur Smith is now the coach of the Falcons. I'm not asking Jeff's sources on this, but I mean, when he says one league source of the Titans also may show interest, Arthur Smith knows what's going on here, right? I'm sure there's been some informal conversations about this and other things. But as Schultz points out here, this is the cap space. It's a huge hit. It's probably going to be one of these teams that has a lot of cap space. The Titans are not one of those teams. If the Titans, if it was so important for the Titans to have, like this dynamic number two. Now I know some people say, number two, it's Julio Jones, but Julio Jones is the number two here if he comes here. I mean, or you can call them co-ones.
Yeah.
He's on the downside of his career. I still think he's very good. He's not the elite, dominant top three receiver he was, and he's also had this accumulation of injuries. But if this was that much of a priority, then they probably would have drafted a receiver earlier than they did, right? In the fourth round, or gone after more than Josh Reynolds in the free agent market. Again, I think the Titans, or tried to get Corey Davis to come back.
Or maybe they're just planning on trading for Julio Jones.
Well, there you go. Or maybe it was all leading to this. It doesn't add up, and it's not going to happen here. This piece brings up another like fantasy football versus real football thing. When people get into this stuff, like Titans fans, I hear restructure the deals, just restructure, create more rate. Well, that's fine. You can kick the can down the road. In this piece, he's talking about Matt Ryan. So he had a $40.9 million cap hit, right? They restructured it to $26.9 this year. And still they can't sign their rookies.
Yeah.
Like they can't even sign Kyle Pitts right now with their cap situation. But by restructuring, which just sounds wonderful, Ryan's cap number next year is $48.66 million.
Oh my God.
So again, how much can kicking do you want to do? Like, you're going to pay the piper at some point, right? The Titans and I relate that to the Titans because they would have to do some serious stuff or cutting people more, whatever, to make this possible. To me, it's not worth Julio Jones at this stage in his career. And I don't know if they have enough to go with Derrick Henry and A.J. Brown with Ryan Tannehill at quarterback and a really good offensive line. I don't know if the other skill on this offense is enough, but clearly that's their approach. And I don't think that it's crazy to think that it is enough. I don't think it's crazy to think a Reynolds, a Fitzpatrick, a Ferkshire, a Darrington Evans, would give you enough help with those other guys. They're going to get great matchups because of those guys. Now, to me, if you're going to do something, and make a trade or create room to fill a need, then go get a starting tight end.
Exactly. I mean, that's still, to me, what the next step is for the Titans. Like, you've got to find a starting tight end to come into this season with. So, look, I get it. I get why the idea of Julio Jones is attractive, and I'm sure that John Robinson, if it comes to that, he'll make a phone call. He'll see what the price is and do his due diligence that way. I just don't see from a salary cap standpoint how this is even possible for the Titans. And also, like, just the player himself. Like, look, I still believe when he's healthy, Julio Jones is very good. He is a very good player. He's only 31 at the moment. Now, he's been in the league for a long time. He's been in the league since 2011. And the last few years, he played 9 games this past year. He did play 15 in 2019, but if you watched him play in 2019, I mean, he was dealing with injuries pretty much the whole year. He just found a way to play through it. I mean, injuries have started to become a pretty consistent theme with Julio Jones, and he's not getting any younger. So I think it's absolutely fair to say, I mean, the 2015 best days, prime Julio Jones, those days are well behind him at this point. He could still be a very good player. I think he'd absolutely still be a pretty high-level number 2, and he could still be a number 1 on some teams in this league as well. It sounds great for the Titans. I just don't see a way this happens. And to your point, like, if this was a part of the plan, like, who else are you going to have to cut? What else are you going to have to do to restructure? Like, to me, that's when you start eating into the offensive line at that point. And that's not something you want to do if you're the Titans.
And you've already done it. You've eaten into your secondary. I mean, I don't see where it makes sense. And actually, Julio is 32, and he missed 7 games last year. All the averages are going down. Again, where is he right at this moment in this league? Is he a top 10 receiver? When healthy, I could buy that. And I get the appeal. Again, when we want to play some fantasy football, I get the appeal of A.J. Brown on one side, Julio Jones on the other. I'm sure Ryan Tannehill's like, hey, shut up. Let's bring in Julio.
A.J. Brown might even be willing at that point to give up number 11. I think he would be.
I think he probably would be, but it's not happening. It sounds like a trade could well happen, and of course, if you're the Titans and you're thinking about like the AFC, you sure hope because the Colts do have space.
I know that's
you
what
sure
I was
hope the Colts don't get into this.
That's what I was going to say.
The Ravens,
you
but
talk about
especially
teams
the Colts
that have cap space. Colts have got some cap space. Can you imagine? Like, how scared would you be if you're a Titans fan? And I realize it's Carson Wentz, but people have, very wide degrees of opinions on Carson Wentz. I'd feel a lot better about Carson Wentz if I'm a Colts fan if Julio Jones is out there to throw the ball to. That's for sure.
Yes, sir. Yeah. So maybe you do just blow everything up and just to keep him from them. maybe that's why you trade for him. But no, I mean, look, he's not going to be here. So it is that. I mean, it does raise my eyebrows just the fact that Arthur Smith is now in Atlanta, and Jeff made a point to put that line in the story. And again, I'm sure Arthur Smith, John Robinson, Mike Vrabel have had some chats and some laughs over this whole idea, but it doesn't make sense.
When we come back, we'll get back into the Nashville Predators. An interesting moment last night in the post-game press conference between Joe Rexrode, Steve Lehman, and Predators head coach John Hines. And then some shots taken at Rexrode as well. We'll get into all that coming up next. This is Robby and Rexrode live from the Wholesaling Studios, powered by RumbleOn.com, here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Welcome back in. Final hour of Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Ryan Porth here with you on this Thursday morning in Middle Tennessee, discussing the Nashville Predators, a Game 2 loss to the Hurricanes last night. They're down 0-2 in the series, coming back home for Game 3 tomorrow at Bridgestone Arena. Looking forward to that game. Should be a great environment inside Bridgestone Arena. And taking your thoughts all show long on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. So, Joe, we've talked a lot about the game today, the power play that was not good whatsoever. An interesting moment last night in the postgame as well regarding yourself, Steve Lehman, our good friend from News Channel 5, and Predators head coach John Hynes as well. Let's listen to the exchange, the reaction last night in the post-game press conference, and then we'll allow you to kind of set it up and explain what you were going for after that when we get done with that. Here's what Predators head coach John Hynes had to say last night in the press conference.
John, we talk a lot in these playoffs about goalies stealing games. Did you think that Saros played one of those games and that it was basically squandered tonight?
Is that you? Is that Joe?
Could you hear me? You got me?
Yeah. Did you ask if our goalie stole the game or their goalie?
Well, no. What I was saying was Saros's performance tonight sort of a classic, goalie stealing a game in the playoffs. That obviously you didn't win, but it was, what about the squandering of his performance?
I thought our team played well.
John, when you're down 2-0, and obviously there were a few mistakes in Game 1, and then tonight the power play woes. What do you hang your hat on, or what do you take as a positive to get some, I guess, positive mojo going into Game 3?
Regarding what?
Just the way you're playing. How do you take a positive or have a positive mentality going into Game 3?
I think the last two questions, like, did we watch the same game? I think when you look at the hockey game, we played a pretty good game. I thought their goaltender made some really good saves. We had good looks. I think you look at shot attempts, you look at shots, you look at offensive zone time, you look at how the game was played. We've got to do a better job on the power play. But I think the last two questions, I think there's a lot of good things to come in the game. We're in a series. We're a better team than we were in the first night. We obviously know the power play has got to be better. But I think there's a lot of positive going out of this game and then coming home.
So that was the exchange last night between John Hynes, Joe Rexrode, and our good friend Steve Lehman as well. And Joe, just kind of watching that unfold in real time last night, what happened and what stood out to me was it just kind of felt like there was a misunderstanding of what you were going for there with your question for John Hynes. Now, I thought Lehman's question was pretty easy to understand. I don't really know what happened there. But what kind of happened from your vantage point in this exchange last night with yourself and John Hynes?
See, there's a different kind of pressure here in the Zoom world where, last night I'm covering the game, from my family room, watching on television. And so then I get on the post game, and my wife is sitting there in the room with me. And as that question's coming out, and listen, Katie has given me. Katie is a former reporter. She's a former police reporter.
Yes.
She has ranted many times about the questions of sports reporters, okay? Because she's been subjected to many of them.
Deservedly
and she's
so.
like, why do you guys sit there and like try to give the whole answer? Just ask a question. And what is this talk about crap? So Katie already is like, she's and so I've got the pressure of her in the room. Now, usually she's not the presser with me. So I felt myself fumbling my question there, and I was like, God, I know I have a smart question here. But so then she's like, that's the dumbest question you've ever asked. But because Katie does not ease up on me. So then I'll give you more. First of all, on this story, so apparently now, like, Stillman and I are going to be allies on this because, like, Jared is, I can tell, like, on his show, he's texting me about the post-game show, which so that happens, and I have the post-game show on Bally Sports, and so then, like, the question is replayed right after it happens, and I'm listening to him like, yeah, it sounded kind of dumb. But now Vingan calls me because we're talking about what we're going to write, and then they switch to Lindsay Lindsey Rowley and Terry Crisp, and they just start trashing me. Terry Crisp is like, well, I had to stupid, ridiculous questions. As a coach, it was never easy, or whatever he said. I'm like, what? Stupid, ridiculous questions? What are we talking about here? I mean, Lindsay didn't really rip it. She was just like, I agree. I agree with Coach Hines. Okay, here's my question. Is it controversial to think that to say that like Saros played great and deserved better when his team didn't score? I mean, I
don't think so.
That's pretty routine.
Look,
right?
I'll be honest with you. Like, I saw that answer from Hines last night. On my part. And maybe you could have phrased it better. I don't know. But like, I knew what you were asking last night. I thought it was pretty clear what direction you were going where. I do think Hines probably misunderstood the question. And then, of course, that leads to, all kinds of stuff on social media last night. People yelling about Hines, some people yelling about you. I mean, it was just kind of this crazy back and forth last night on social media. But between that and then you have Layman's question as well, which I thought was pretty direct, right? Like what sort of positives are you taking into Game 3 after being down 0-2 in the series? I think a pretty direct question there. I mean, I just found that entire exchange a little weird last night after the game.
Well, I mean, are we watching the same game?
Yeah.
And here's another funny part of this. As I said earlier on the show, the three of us were texting. I think I'm the highest on their overall performance of the three of us. Like
by far.
I said that. I was like, they played a lot. I thought they played a lot better. 5-on-5, they play a lot better. Now, unfortunately for the Preds, the power play time does count in your overall performance, and it was abysmal. But if you separate it out, I agree they played better 5-on-5. And this are we watching the same game again? Layman wasn't sitting there saying, "Are you going to rebound from being the worst hockey team in the history of hockey?" He was just like, "What can you take positive forward?"
Yeah,
I mean they got outscored 8-2 in 2 games. They scored no goals last night. Their power play was comically bad. They also played better 5-on-5. There was some encouragement, but to me, the most encouraging thing out of everything is Saros and how he's playing right now. And I stand by that Saros played a steal-a-game game in the playoffs and did not get help.
Well, he didn't get any goal support whatsoever. I mean, and look, and I honestly, I had a bit of an issue with what happened last night in the postgame, not just from Hines, but from Johansen and Yossi as well. Look, I get it. You're down 2 games in the series. You're trying to stay as even as you can heading into Game 3. You're coming back home, and you're hoping you could take advantage of home ice. I realize all that. But and maybe I'm just influenced as well by what we saw after the play-in series last year against Arizona. But we played good. We played well. We just didn't execute. Just didn't score on the power play. Got to be better on the power play. Like, that crap gets old after a while, and we've reached the point where that's old with this team. Like, nobody wants to hear after a playoff series against Arizona about how well you played. You just couldn't find a way to score enough goals, and you read into a hot goaltender. Nobody wants to hear that at this time. I realize this series is not over, and they've still got a chance to come back in here, so it's not exactly the same situation. But I did kind of have some Arizona vibes last night in that postgame press conference of, there's a whole lot of trying to put some lipstick on this pig that we're seeing right now, and quite frankly, I think Predators fans are tired of that.
Yeah, they don't want to hear it. I mean, I'm trying to think of who, and I think there's not a lot of guys on this roster who will come out and say, sharp things after a loss. Maybe Ekholm would be your best bet. I mean, some of that is, you've got to try to find whatever positives you can find, and you're not giving up. And so that's going to be your mindset. And so you'll bring that into the presser. And it was not as bad. It was bad last year because there's not even a participation white ribbon for playing better than Arizona in a series you should have won that you lost in 4. This is different. This is a better team. No one thinks you're going to beat them, but still, I agree. There's a balance there between, in your own mind, you got to take the positives. You got to move forward. You got to try to win a game. But publicly, it's okay to say you didn't play your best. It's okay to rip yourself a little bit.
Let's go to our text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Michael from Hendersonville texting in. The wording of your question was awful. It didn't help you had to repeat yourself. We knew where your heart was, though, and you'll get an A for an effort. You'll get them next time, champ. So a little bit of encouragement there at the end for Rexrode from Michael in Hendersonville.
Thank you so much, Michael. Yeah, I tell you, I need the pressure of Katie in the room during a presser. It's not something I'm used to. Yeah, I think I need to lock myself away somewhere next game.
Well, we've talked about players all show long today, rising up to the moment in the playoffs. Maybe you need like a pregame speech as well. Maybe, Katie, you got to be able to hang in there and handle this adversity, Rexrode.
Listen, coming home, the fans are going to be energetic. The Zoom is going to be it's going to be crackle free. The Wi-Fi is going to be strong. Man, my next question is going to be perfect. Just right and concise and to the point.
We're looking forward to that coming up after Game 3 on Friday. When we come back, we'll continue the conversation on the Nashville Predators. Got a lot of your thoughts to get to on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. Also, a really cool thing happening between the Nashville Predators and our radio station here on ESPN 1025 The Game. We'll get to more of that coming up next. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 1025 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Ryan Porth here with you on this Thursday morning. Streaming live on Periscope, on YouTube, and on Twitch as well. We'll be joined at 9:30 by Preds radio analyst Hal Gill. We'll break down Game 2 in a little bit more detail with him coming up here in about 12 minutes or so. So make sure you stay tuned in for that. Ryan Porth, a really cool announcement that's just come out between the Nashville Predators and our radio station here on ESPN 102.5 The Game regarding 615 Day that will benefit the Boys and Girls Clubs of Middle Tennessee. What can you tell us about what's going to be going down on 615 Day here between the Predators and ESPN 102.5 The Game as well?
Yeah, so as you may know, June 15th is 615 on the calendar, and the area code for Nashville is 615.
Both these things are true.
In case I needed to explain this. So Tuesday, June 15th is 615 Day this year, and we are teaming up with the Nashville Predators on a 615 Day celebration with an all-day broadcast at Fordyce Center in Bellevue, where you guys will be out there, Darren Donick and Chase, Stillman Company, everybody out at Fordyce Center in Bellevue for a really good cause where there will be some free food. It's a free event where a lot of the Boys and Girls Club kids are going to be out there either learning how to play hockey or, really benefiting from this day. All the proceeds from this day will go to the Boys and Girls Club of Middle Tennessee. There will be some free public skates that day. There will be some opportunities for the listeners leading up to this event to win an opportunity to shoot the puck from center ice and try to make it into the little hole when they put up the board between the pipes. So it's going to be a really fun day, all for a good cause. We wanted to come up with something that could be community-related, giving back to Nashville, and 615 Day is going to be that opportunity. So there will be more info that comes out throughout this next month leading up to June 15th. There will be a silent auction that will begin at some point before June 15th, where, again, all the proceeds from that silent auction with some cool prizes will all go to the Boys and Girls Club. So really excited about this event.
And as you said, coming up on June the 15th as well, 615 Day here in Nashville, Tennessee. By the way, just tweeted out a statement and some information as well at 1025 The Game on Twitter. For more information on 615 Day, you can check it out as well at thegamenashville.com. And we'll have a lot more to discuss on 615 Day coming up in the weeks ahead here. Joe, let's go to our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. Going back to your question on John Hines, Matt in Gallatin wants to know, how do you think Mike Vrabel would have handled that question last night? That would have been fun.
Well, what's funny is, in the moment, I was like, gosh, I flubbed that. And also the two answers, I was like, dang, he is. Hines is ticked, But then when you listen back to him, well, it wasn't. I mean, for Hines, who's very even keel, It was notable because he never has any of that. Yeah, Vrabel might have strangled me, but that's the cool thing about Zoom. See, that's where I prefer, being in the room with Katie. And
definitely could have been a Brett Kern reference last night if Vrabel's involved.
Yeah, the double reverse to the punter.
Reverse to the punter. That's
right.
for sure.
What would have the equivalent been?
.com.
Like squandering a great performance by Ryan Tannehill in a playoff game or something like that?
I guess so.
Yeah.
We got to play better, got to coach better. That's what his response would have been.
Yeah. Maybe ask about the coordinator.
Yeah. Let's go back to the text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Got a texter that says the smaller players like Granlund, Tolvanen, Arvidsson, Grimaldi, and Ellis have room on the ice during the regular season to produce, but once that room is eliminated in the playoffs, they are a no-show. We've talked about that a little bit on the show today, and it's interesting because it's not like we've not seen some of these guys produce. Ellis has been good in the playoffs before. Arvidsson's been okay in the playoffs before. Now, with Arvidsson, it's a little bit different. I don't ever remember Arvidsson just being amazing in the playoffs like we've seen him at times in the regular season. But Rocco, Grimaldi was really good in the 2019 series against Dallas as well. But you do wonder, moving forward here, if guys like Brad Richardson and Nick Cousins, who I think started to play pretty well down the stretch for the Predators as well. Like, do they find a way into the lineup when Game 3 rolls around? And honestly, Joe, like one of the takeaways I had from last night, and I don't know if it's just because he's been hurt and he's coming back from injury, or if this is what he is now heading into the playoffs. I thought a pretty unimpressive performance last night from Victor Arvidsson. And look, we've seen him play at a really high level before, but it kind of feels like he's diminishing a bit as a player right before our eyes. And last night, when you have the combination of getting pushed around like multiple people have pointed out today on the text line, and he does not have the speed burst at the moment to go along with it, he's not bringing a whole lot to the table out there, in my opinion.
No, absolutely. If he's not, if his speed game isn't doing anything, then he's not helping you too much. And to the texter's point, I mean, time and space is taken away in the playoffs. Physicality becomes more important in the playoffs. You know, for this lineup, for Game 3, this is the game. I think you could make a case for John Hines' Game 1 lineup in this game. At home, get every big hitter you can get out there. You can control matchups. Get your guy Goodbranson going, But seriously, I mean, this is a game where I think you could make the – and I hear some people saying, what about Rocco? And it's worth a thought. I agree with you on Cousins. But, like, Olivier and Jeannot in the lineup, like, this might be the game to do something like that and say, you know what? I'd also be looking at about John and say, how do they have 20 more hits than us in the first 2 games?
Yeah.
That was supposed to be our game.
Now, I wonder if a little bit of that is some hometown counting of the hits. Maybe. That happens from time to time.
Could be.
But to your point, even if it is, like that was supposed to be something that you felt like if you're the Predators, that's an advantage for you heading into this series. There's no question that's not been an advantage. Like Carolina, to me, has been every bit as physical as the Predators have, and in some cases more physical in this series so far.
Yeah, so this next game lineup is going to be actually just fascinating because I think you can still make the case for Tolvanen on the power play that you hope could actually get shots and have a chance to do anything, but you can also look at him 5-on-5 and say, man, there's a few different guys you could put in there who do more for you. Do you want more speed? Do you want more physicality? Does a guy like Cousins deserve a look? Does a guy like Grimaldi deserve a look? Does Fabro see the ice at all in this series?
Yeah.
There's still it's going to be really interesting to see what Hines comes up with for Game 3.
Let's go to our text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Knox from Florida texting in saying, what stood out to me more than the power play or lineup, the third goal allowed. Our big-name guys not producing is one thing, but to hang Saros out to dry after his performance is inexcusable, not only from amateurs but from professionals as well. And to top that, for Hines to say that he saw positives is denial. At some point, coaching must hold them accountable as well. This is coming from Knox in Florida.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of reminds me of the whole, so Hines can motivate him in the regular season, he can't in the postseason. This is a time for execution. It's a time for plan from him, but it's largely about execution from the players. They are playing their guts out. There's no doubt about that. And I don't think it like Hines comes in and yells at someone, or what's that going to do? What he has, the hammer, is the playing time.
Sure.
The hammer is the lineup. So Tolvanen, as they go through the film of last night and some of the things that he didn't do out there that he needs to do better, that might be cause for him to not play in Game 3, and that should motivate him the next time he gets a chance to do more of those things that has become expected, especially of the forwards on this team. I don't disagree with Hines that there was some positives. I think he generally is a look at the bright side kind of guy in dealing with us on things. So I don't think he's totally wrong. It's just you have to isolate the power play and remove it from the conversation to really say you were happy with the performance, and you can't. I mean, it was part of the performance, and it was a joke.
Our good friend Justin Beasley from Channel 4 on Periscope says, are Hines and Rexrode good? Are they all right? I like both guys. What do you think, Joe? You good with John Hines moving forward?
Thank you, Justin. Listen, never mind. I won't even do it. I was gonna rip Justin. I'm not gonna do it. I love you, Justin.
We appreciate.
Let's all be friends.
Let's all be friends here on the show. When we come back, speaking of friends, we'll be joined by our friend, Preds radio analyst Hal Gill. Coming up next, we'll look back at Game 2 and ahead to Game 3 with him next. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Ryan Porth here with you on this Thursday morning in Nashville, Tennessee. Predators fall last night in Game 2, 3-0 to the Hurricanes. They're down 0-2 heading back here for Game 3 at Bridgestone Arena coming up tomorrow night. And to help us talk more about that, we go to our 102.5 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, and welcome in our good friend, Preds radio analyst Hal Gill, presented by Duncan, featuring their new location in Belmead, and TriStar Moving, TriStar Movers with 5-star service. Skillsy, what's going on, brother? How we doing?
I'm doing all right. Just putting the pieces together after last night, but it's a new day.
It is a new day, and we've talked a lot here today on the show, Hal, about the power play last night. Obviously, when you go 0 for 7, that's going to be a pretty big storyline coming out of the game. We knew Carolina was very good on the penalty kill before we came into this series. So when you watch the Predators' power play right now, what are you seeing out there? What is Carolina making difficult for them, and what are the Predators just simply not executing on, in your opinion?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of a lot of things. First of all, you have to remember that it's one of the best penalty kills in the league, and they are committed to it. They're fast. They're big. They have long sticks. They take away all your options. But systems-wise, if we're getting down to nitty-gritty, they just couldn't get zone time. They couldn't set up enough, and the problem I think they were having is the Preds like to enter and run it around the boards and have the weak side D pick it up, and that's how they usually set up. And the Canes would leave a guy over there, and just so it was diffused before they could even get a setup. Downfall of doing that as a penalty kill is that you leave a guy on the weak side, and so it's covered in the middle. And so I think towards the end of the game, they tried to through the middle a little bit more, knowing that guy was on the weak side. And it worked a couple times to get set up, but that was a challenge for them. And then when they are set up, it's interesting because a lot of hockey people and fans in general will just say, if you have a struggling power play, you got to shoot. Well, it doesn't work that way. It's not as simple as just shoot. I feel like the Preds were trying to shoot. What they weren't doing was moving the puck quick enough so that they were getting shots with legitimate scoring chances and with the ability to track down pucks and create odd man chances in front. And to do that, I think they just need to pass it a couple times more, and it could be as simple as, instead of half wall to the point, it could be half wall to the point, to the half wall, back to the point, to the other, to the half wall again, and a shot. It just a couple more passes, and I think they'll create a lot more lanes and get a lot more movement out of the penalty kill. And ultimately, that's what Carolina did to the Preds. They got that exchange up top with the top two forwards and got them out of position, and were able to attack from the flank and hit the seam pass. So, I think it's not too far off. It's right there. You had a couple shots, a couple of big blocks. Tolvanen had a great look. He gets that shot block, but that's the look that they're looking for. But good penalty kills have a way of having sticks in the passing lanes, and they have bodies in shot lanes, and that's what Carolina did. So they got to stick with it, though. You look at that game, and you get one power play goal, you're right in it. You get two, and you're winning a game. And so it's not too far off.
So, Hal, assuming they can make the adjustment in Game 3 when they're on the power play and do a better job of entering the zone, how important do you think it is that Eeli Tolvanen is part of that first unit on the power play, and what did you think of his overall performance last night?
Yeah, I think, the frustrating part is he didn't get the puck enough. I think every time he got it, I'm seeing things open up for him. And he had that pass through the seam to Duchesne, which is exactly what you're looking for. Duchesne double clutches it, and it gives time for Nedeljkovic to get over and make a save on the shot from Duchesne. But those are the looks that you're looking for. He has a way of extending zone time, and he's probably the best. I think he is the best on the team at doing it. Maybe Roman Josi is right up there with that, but he can be a scoring threat and hit two pass lanes at the same time. And for a penalty killer, that's what scares you more than anything. And so I thought he had a couple good looks. I'd love to see the power play go through him more, just because he is so deadly with the options that he has available to him, whether it's a seam pass or just a shot in general. So I thought that what he did was good, but I think they need to get through him a little bit more. The sad part is, the 5-on-5, it's like, can you really give a fair assessment to anyone 5-on-5? There wasn't much time out there 5-on-5. So it really comes down to the power play. If the games are going to be that chippy and there's going to be that many penalties, then yeah, I think you definitely need him in the lineup, because he can run a power play for you.
Preds radio analyst Hal Gill on the line with us, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. And how we spent so much time, in between Game 1 and Game 2 talking about the lineup decisions and whether or not people agree with that, and that's all well and good. But one thing John Hines talked about was you can make the lineup changes you want to make, but you need your best players to step up and play well. And you look at the other side, Jordan Stahls played well. Obviously, Sebastian Aho, Svechnikov with that connection last night as well. And then you look around at the Predators, and outside of Yossi, who I thought was really good last night, and Forsberg to a certain degree, we've not seen much from Duchesne and Johansen and Arvidsson so far in this series. How much of this is just going to have to be, if the Predators have any chance in this series, some of those guys, those three guys specifically that I just mentioned, are going to have to be better, or they're just not going to have enough firepower?
Yeah, it's tough. As far as elite goal scorers go, it's such a weird thing, because you say, okay, they got to produce. Well, in a playoff game, all you need is once. You're talking about Aho, and you're like, oh, he's got to. If he doesn't score that goal, are they looking over at him going, oh, he's got to be better? It's like such a fine line. Phil goes down and hits iron and tries to go short side. And if he scores that goal, he's the hero. And so Arvidsson had that one wraparound try that was a good attempt. Duchesne had the shot off the half wall that I talked about, where he just double clutches it and gives the goalie time to come across. If he can make that clean play, we're talking about them as heroes. And so it's really a fine line. And as a player, you don't want to get discouraged. You want to keep going out and doing the little things, because eventually it'll come around for you if you keep doing things right. But as a coach, they're looking at it going, who's that guy that's going to make it happen? It's one thing to talk about, oh, I had some good looks, but you need big-time players to step up. And unfortunately, that means, not hoping for good breaks to happen, but making them happen. And that's where the hard part for John Hines is do I want to put a heavy lineup that's just going to grind them down and keep working? Do I want to put in a fast, skilled lineup? Is that going to be the focus? Because we need to keep attacking and keep trying to generate scoring chances. That's the hard part for a coach. So I don't know how you manage that. And then, ultimately he's got to look at chemistry and say who's working well with who and who can we put out. They're going to have the last change at home. So that's going to be another wrinkle that John Hines is going to have to weigh and say, okay, we can get the matchups that we want. Who should we have together, and how should we play our cards?
Hal, we've watched Mikhail Granlund be certainly one of the best players on this team this year. Huge part of why this team is in this series. And haven't seen much from him at all in 2 games, which has kind of been the theme for him in 3 postseasons with the Preds. Is it as simple as the physicality of the playoffs, the space getting taken away just doesn't suit his game? What are you seeing from him?
Yeah, I think I thought he was pretty good last night. I thought what he does really well is not just in and around the net and in the corners, but also on the half wall where he can protect the puck and then he's attacking. He can turn it from protecting the puck to attack, and that's what the Preds have had a hard time doing. You look at that Richardson play that he draws a penalty where he's on the half wall and he takes a quick pivot move and goes to the net. Well, he draws a penalty there. So in my mind, he's done his job, and that's what Granlund has consistently done well, I think. So he's also playing against tough lines. He has a tough role, and again, not to bury it, not to beat it to death, but 5-on-5, I think he's a guy that wants to get into a rhythm, and then his line needs to get into a rhythm. Poor Luke Cunnin didn't see any ice for 2 games. He's sitting there watching power play penalty kill, and so he's not getting out on the ice. So it's tough for those guys to get into a rhythm. So I think he's performing. He's just performing in subtleties as opposed to being a big splash on the score sheet.
Preds radio analyst Hal Gill has been our guest here on Robby and Rexrode. Joins us every Thursday at 9:30 here on the show. Hal, great stuff, man. Appreciate you taking time to join us this morning.
All right. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. Hal Gill, presented by Duncan, featuring their new location in Belle Meade, and TriStar Movers with 5-star service. We'll come back, react a little bit to what Hal had to say here, and finish up the show with a lot of your thoughts on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. We'll do that next here on Robby and Rexrode, ESPN 1025, The Game. Go to theGameNashville.com to check out Nashville's best deals. This week it's buy one, get one free tickets to Beach Bend Park and Splash Lagoon. Beach Bend Park is your ticket to summer fun. Double your fun and double your savings with buy one, get one admission, 2 parks, 2 tickets for the price of one. Get yours now at theGameNashville.com. Welcome back in. Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Talking Nashville Predators, taking your thoughts on our text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. Kathy on the text line says, I'm completely with Katie Rexrode on some questions from sports reporters. I cringe when I hear talk about blank, and some do have a tendency to ask long, rambling, answer your own questions. Joe, are you a big violator of the long question, answering your own questions, as Kathy points out?
Well, Kathy, it's totally fair. I mean, I think Katie could be a little nicer sometimes about it, but it is totally fair. I try really hard to ask brief, concise, open-ended questions, but sometimes I fail, and I believe that last night counts as a failure.
It's okay. We expect better.
And by the way, so Darren Donick Chase coming up. I'm interested to hear from Willie. Is the entire Bally Sports broadcast opinion that I ask stupid, ridiculous questions, or is that just crispy? I would like to know.
I don't know. We'll have to find out. Coming up at 10 o'clock today here on the show. Maybe Willie will let you know. Let's go back to the text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Amy texting in, where do you even start about last night? Do you both agree that Forsberg has just not looked as sharp and like himself since returning to the lineup? What have you thought of Philip Forsberg so far in this series?
He's way down my list of concerns. I mean, he hit the post last night. He had 5 shots on goal last night. He had the great goal in game 1. I mean, of course, you always want more from him. If he doesn't score in a game where you don't score in a game, you look at him first, right?
Yeah.
But he's way down my list of concerns. And look, I think Hal has great analysis and made some good points about Granlund making some crafty plays last night. But like, there's a guy who I still think I think you need more from him.
I agree.
I do. And he may not be, I just think that the impact he's had on games leading into this postseason was eye-popping at times, right?
Yeah.
And Carolina's going to make it harder for him and everybody, but there's an example of someone I'd put way higher on my list of concerns right now than Forsberg.
Let's go back to the text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Donovan from Wisconsin texting in, Duchesne needs to be set for at least a game. For a guy who makes $8 million a year and makes as many bad choices as he did yesterday with some passes. I mean, I didn't think Duchesne was awful yesterday. I mean, he did have a couple of passes trying to go across the box on the power play. They got picked off, and they started to go the other way. Now, I don't really want to get into the business of singling out people on that power play yesterday because that was a pretty collective affair that we saw on the power play of struggle bus yesterday. But Duchesne, to Hal's point, he did have that one opportunity where he kind of double-clutched it a little bit, and Nedeljkovic had time to slide over and make that save. He just doesn't look crisp, and this is not a this series thing. Like, I've seen Duchesne play a lot of hockey. He used to be in the Predators division. He played with Colorado. He was good in Ottawa for the most part, good with Columbus as well. I've seen him when he's at his best. There's not a whole lot of thinking involved. He's just making plays, reading, and reacting. Right now, it just doesn't look like anything they're doing out there is really all that smooth. There doesn't seem to be a ton of chemistry out there, and I think Carolina has a lot to do with that. They're making life very difficult on the Predators. But, yeah, Duchesne was not great yesterday. I didn't come away from that game yesterday thinking that Duchesne was this big problem in the lineup.
No, I agree, and he got more ice time, and I actually thought you could argue that a couple of his passes could have been good passes. You know, to your point, there was some chemistry lacking at times. I think some of it, you could say some of it is mixing and matching and stuff like that. Some of it is, to Hal's point last segment, I mean, you didn't have much 5-on-5 time, in this game. It was hard to set up a rhythm. But also, it's also Carolina, I think, has sped up the Preds a lot. I think you see that a lot so far in these two games where maybe there's a little bit more time and space to make a play, but you're so used to them being in your grill that you speed up a little bit too much. So I honestly thought Duchesne looked like a guy, who was trying to create some stuff, and I'm not coming away from that game thinking he needs to sit.
Let's go back to the text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Bobby texting in. It's really painful to see our boys so overmatched all the way around. Unfortunately, every time we've made the playoffs the last few years, I feel like I've been watching and rooting for the Bad News Bears. It's a tough one from Bobby. The Bad News Bears.
Dang. Well, the Preds were not overmatched last year. They were, I think, the better team, and they lost to Arizona.
As we found out very clearly after the series was over, the press conferences, yes.
That's right. I think 2 years ago, certainly, that was I picked them. I thought they'd beat Dallas. I think most people did. And that was the physical battering series where it was clear they needed to work on that aspect of their game. But, it hasn't been a lot of postseason failures, but it's definitely not trending well.
Heidi from Dixon on the text line says, is Joe mad Yarncroke didn't play? Heard he wasn't in the lineup. Didn't get to watch. Were you upset that Yarncroke wasn't in there? Your good friend Joe Davion Rexrode not in the lineup yesterday.
And by the way, it was not for performance.
No.
That was the health thing John Hines referenced, so a non-COVID illness. But it's always good to see Yarncroke out there. I was more upset that I picked Forsberg. I actually got the Forsberg pick, and no one scored.
That's right. He hit the post, though. Came close at one time. Let's go back to the text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Brian in Portland text in, what would you do to kickstart the power play? You can't get in the zone, and when they do, it's a turnover turning into a shorthanded fast break the other way. I think a lot of it starts with just finding a way to get set up. Like that's what Hal Gill was talking about in the last segment. You've got to find a way to get set up. If you can do that, there are ways to combat an overly aggressive penalty kill unit. It requires very quick puck movement. It requires you making the right decisions, and there's a lot of pressure involved there. And at times, if you make the wrong decision, they can make you look bad going the other way. But the first step, Joe, is just getting set up.
And look, this can't be as much like trying to solve the Rubik's Cube as it looks like right now.
Right.
I mean, I'm sorry, but it's just – I'm like you, Robby, not good at math. Went into this field. 5 people on one side, 4 on the other. I can't believe that the Preds can't make some adjustments here to do better. I mean, certainly do better than, hey, here's an odd man rush for you.
Right.
Here's another. I mean, that was crazy for a while.
Well, we'll have all sorts of reaction tomorrow, getting your thoughts as well on our text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Looking ahead to Game 3 in this series coming up between the Predators and the Carolina Hurricanes. We'll do that tomorrow here on the show. That does it for us today here on Robby and Rexrode. Darren Donica Chase is coming up next. You're listening to ESPN 102.5 The Game.